Chapter 266. In Iceland, a man wearing a white fox fur coat was hugging a woman with delicate features as they sat on a single sofa by the stove. The woman's skin was so fair and translucent that one could almost see the pink veins under her skin. She looked like a fragile glass doll. Without makeup, she was beautiful and cold. At the moment, she was barefoot. Her beautiful feet stepped on the carpet like they were carved from white jade, making people unable to look away. Guan Nai, when no company dared to sign you, I agreed to your request. So this time, you have to do me a favor. Ling Han had arrived last night. In order to wait for this eccentric woman to wake up, he had waited for an entire night. Guan Nai yawned and stretched lazily on the sofa, without a care for her image. The fox fur coat slid down to her waist. She tugged at it casually and shrunk back into it. She said lazily, "Why didn't you just call them? Why did you have to come here, personally?" Ling Han frowned. "Do you have a signal here? Even if you do, would you pick up the phone?" Guan Nai raised her eyes. Okay, just tell me. What is it? I'll go to sleep after you're done." Every year, during the scorching summer, Miss Guan Nai, who was as famous as Sheng Anren in the film industry, would disappear from the face of the earth. She would come to Iceland to rest and recuperate for 2 months. 3 years ago, when Ling Han had signed her, this request had been included in the contract. Someone said that I'm a kept woman. Guan Nai's eyelids drooped. "That's it? You're looking for me for this? Is it necessary? Who dares to keep me? Ask them to come in front of me and let me see." "That's not it." Ling Han straightened his face. "I want this to be a hot topic on the internet for a while. It's best to write more in depth. Since it's black material, it'll be black to the end." Hearing this, Guan Nai was silent for a few seconds. When he raised his head again, he already knew what was going on. "President Ling, you're quite creative. So if I don't do this personally, I'm afraid no one can do it." Ling Han's clear eyes sparkled under the fire. Just like when Guan Nai first met him 3 years ago, he was like a cunning fox. She blinked. "How did you know I would agree? As the princess of the royal family of Eastern Europe, you can't go back on your word. I've taken you in for 3 years. The fire emitted the sound of splashing wood, which was very warm. Guan Nai curled her lips, as if she despised the Eastern European royal family. "I'm a purebred Easterner. Even if I'm a princess of the Eastern European royal family with blonde hair and blue eyes, I'm just a toy they picked up. Don't flatter me. Besides, I've earned a lot of money for you in the past 3 years. You spent a lot too." While speaking, Ling Han looked around the splendidly decorated house, and the words in his heart went without saying. Guan Nai was blinded by his gifts, so it was fine if he put on airs, but he didn't really argue with him. "I don't have any objections. You can just greet them as you please. But you have to think about it yourself with some people. If you annoy them, I won't help you clean up the mess. That's all I need." Ling Han already had a plan in mind, so he got up and was about to leave. When he reached the door, Guan Nai suddenly thought of something and shouted, "Hey, if something happens, don't tell him that I'm here." Ling Han didn't turn around and responded vaguely. He was a businessman, and when the time came, he couldn't be sure. The cost of taking care of this princess was really high, and the profit was not much. It was good that that person took her away as soon as possible. As soon as Ling Han left Iceland, the headlines on the front page changed. The 3 major artist scandals were all suppressed, and no amount of evidence could compare to this headline. "Fairy sister, Guan Nai has been kept by dozens of men in the past 3 years of her popularity." When this kind of scandals was first released, even Pleasure's competitors were a little overwhelmed and removed all connections between their companies and Guan Nai. Pleasure actually didn't do anything and let the matter ferment for 24 hours. In the end, all kinds of so-called evidence were released. There were even photos of the CEO of a media company, the director of a TV station, and even photos of him being caught in bed by the director's wife. It was only a silhouette, so it couldn't be completely confirmed that it was Guan Nai. But first impressions were the strongest, and the internet was already one-sided. Pleasure only posted a sentence on its official Weibo about such scandals. "It's purely a rumor." These 4 words without any confidence made the internet go into an uproar again, as if this was an admission. Until 24 hours later, the Current Politics News Network released a shocking news. The second heir of the Eastern European royal family, the Crown Prince, announced his marriage to his childhood sweetheart, his adopted sister, Guan Nai. The Current Politics News Network didn't pay much attention to it, but after some people forwarded it to the internet, there were a lot of rumors about Guan Nai's background. Someone found out that she entered the Eastern European royal family at the age of 5 and was the adopted daughter of the Queen of the Eastern European royal family. She came to China at the age of 18 to develop her career. 3 years ago, she signed a contract with Pleasure and had a strong backer behind all her movies. Since her debut, she had almost no scandals and would disappear for a few months every year. When the marriage news came out, these disappearances were also explained. The entire internet was in an uproar. After Pleasure's official Weibo published a series of articles that were suspected to be satirizing their competitors' lack of professional integrity and slandering them, the netizens were all fence-sitters. They all scolded the rumor makers and implicated many media companies. Those who had exposed the news before were now treated as jokes and ignored. Although it was a close call, Pleasure was still hurt by this public relations crisis. The collapse of the artist's image caused the sales of many brands endorsed by their own artists to plummet. Many customers would rather breach the contract than continue to cooperate with them. The netizens were easy to fool, but the partners were not. Everyone could see that this was a clever public relations campaign. After that, Xiao Mu reported the company's losses during this period and gave the list to Ling Han to sign. Did you find out? Ling Han lowered his head to sign and asked him about the thorough investigation of this incident. Only Xiao Dong from the secretary's office, me from the assistant group, you, and the 2 secretaries who left before saw the information. Only you, Xiao Dong, me, and secretary, ye know the secret key. Since it's confirmed that it was an internal problem, excluding you, the only suspects left are me, Xiao Dong, and secretary Yi. You really dared to take the blame for this. Ling Han laughed and handed the signed contract to him. I trust your character. As for that Xiao Dong, is there a problem? It shouldn't be Xiao Dong's problem. Xiao Mu hesitated and looked like he wanted to say something. On the day of the incident, Xiao Dong was working overtime in the company, and the source of the IP address that first published the artist's information was seeing Xiao Mu hemming and hawing. Ling Han looked up with a profound gaze. Speak. It was Jin Jiang Park. Ling Han's face suddenly darkened. Chapter 267. Jin Jiang Park. Ling Han repeated the address that Xiao Mu gave him word by word, and his face was already shrouded in a layer of frost. You're saying that the information leak this time came from somewhere near my house? Xiao Mu lowered his head with a calm expression. Director Ling, from a company's technology department's investigation, the initial location of the information leak has already been accurately pinpointed to your villa in Jinjiang Park, not just nearby. Also, there's something else that I think I need to remind you of. Speak. On the afternoon of the incident, when I sent Secretary Yi back, she made a lot of inquiries about the leak. I don't know how much you told her, but she kept asking about the company's plan to deal with it. So I think, a crisp breaking sound rang out in the air. A gel pen broke in Ling Han's right hand, and ink seeped out of the pen's plastic casing and soaked the white paper on the table. Xiao Mu's expression stiffened, and he swallowed back the words he wanted to say. Ling Han looked up at him and questioned, You think that Yi Huanyan did this? I'm just stating facts. Xiao Mu only felt suffocated under his intense gaze. Ling Han's face was cold, and he revealed a displeased expression. Xiao Mu, what do you think will benefit her from leaking the company's artist's information? Tiny beads of sweat seeped out of Xiao Mu's forehead, and he hesitantly said, I don't know. His sharp eyes kept staring at him as if he wanted to see through his thoughts. After a while, the owner of those eyes suddenly changed the topic. Is there any information about Sun Yinhua in this information leak? No. Xiao Mu was slightly taken aback. The company's A-list and A-list artists are all in it, except for Su Nianhua. There's no information at all? No. The office returned to silence, and Ling Han's expression became increasingly gloomy and cold. Qiao Mu stood to the side and did his best to maintain his composure. However, when Ling Han told him to leave, he turned around and slowly exhaled. Ling Han wasn't a fool. If the target of this incident hadn't been Yi Huanyan, and if it hadn't been for the unclear relationship between Su Nianhua and Yi Huanyan, he would have exposed his intentions with his words just now. Keeping Su Nianhua's information and letting Ling Han discover it himself was his last trump card. On the way back to Jinjiang Court, Ling Han's face was very ugly, and the coldness in his eyes did not diminish in the slightest. Qiao Mu escorted him to the entrance of the villa. After inquiring about how to deal with this matter, she did not dare to ask any more questions. It was noon in June, and the moment they stepped out of the car, they were greeted by the scorching sun. The sun shone on the black suit, which absorbed the heat with all its might. That figure disappeared from Qiao Mu's sight, but it still made his heart cold. A trace of regret flashed through his eyes. He slowly rolled down the car window and anxiously shouted, "Director Ling." Ling Han turned around and looked at him with a frown. "What's wrong?" A ringtone rang in the car. It was her exclusive ringtone. Qiao Mu's expression froze, and the words that were about to come out of his mouth changed. "I just wanted to say that since this matter is over, Director Ling shouldn't take it to heart." Ling Han did not comment and turned to walk into the house. Behind him was the sound of the car starting and driving away. Finally, it disappeared around the corner covered by trees and exited the west gate of Jinjiang Court. Qiao Mu did not answer the phone until a long time after he left Jinjiang Court. On the other end of the phone, the woman's voice sounded very anxious. "How is it? Does he believe you?" A trace of sadness flashed through Qiao Mu's eyes. "He does." Then, Yi Huanyan, Qiao Mu glanced at her phone's battery. "I'll go to Fujin Court in a bit. Let's talk when we meet." After saying this, she hung up without waiting for Sheng Anren's response. The moment he hung up the phone, his eyes were filled with a complicated expression, and his heart was filled with mixed feelings. Ever since Yi Huanyan entered pleasure, they were colleagues. Back then, when she was Ling Doming's secretary, he was still the assistant of the branch company's manager, Ling Han. Not many people in the company knew of her identity. Because of his relationship with Ling Han, he knew about this, so he always kept a certain distance from her and was very reserved. At that time, Yi Huanyan was very lively and called him Brother Qiao Mu, without the slightest air of a young lady. Perhaps it was because of Ling Han, but every time he went to the headquarters to do something, Yi Huanyan would always make things convenient for him. At first, he thought that Yi Huanyan was only a rich missy who lived off her parents. Later on, when they worked together at the headquarters, he truly witnessed her outstanding work ability and adaptability. He admired her. As an outsider who had always observed her relationship with Ling Han, his admiration for her was indescribable. A woman whose work ability was on par with his, who was smart and quick-witted, who had top-notch resistance to pressure, and who had several years less experience than him. He didn't dare to think about what kind of slander this kind of woman would face under his calculations. He stomped hard on the accelerator, trying to numb his conscience with the stimulation of speed. Yi Huanyan sat on a cushion next to the swimming pool in the backyard. Her feet were submerged in the pool water, and she occasionally stepped on it. She had a parasol over her head and a magazine in her hand, looking very content. When she heard voices in the living room, she pulled out her feet and carelessly stomped on the carpet by the pool before running barefooted into the living room. "You're back." Ling Han was handing the suit to Ling Ling when he heard this. He raised his head and coldly sized up the woman in front of him who was already very familiar to him. Unexpectedly, she suddenly jogged a few steps and rushed into his arms. Her hands passed through his waist and the inside of his arms and hugged his back. His arms immediately warmed up. "Did you know that the baby moved again?" The voice that came was very sweet and gentle, with heartfelt joy. He was stunned for a few seconds, but in the end, he slowly put his hands around her shoulders and asked softly, "When?" "Before you came back. I was sitting by the swimming pool, and he kept kicking me. The baby seems to be very sensitive to water. Come with me." As she spoke, she pulled Ling Han's hand and walked toward the swimming pool in the backyard. In Fujin Court, a black SUV was parked in the garage. In the living room, Sheng Anren was holding 2 glasses of juice, one of which she handed to Chiao Mu. "You said on the phone that Ling Han believed you. Then where is he now?" He dropped all his work and directly returned to Jinjiang Court. Hearing this, Sheng Anren immediately sneered. "I don't believe that he can spare Yi Huanyan after such a thing happened this time. Don't you want to ask his attitude toward this incident?" Chiao Mu looked up at Sheng Anren with a very complicated gaze that seemed to be pity and mockery. He ordered the HR department to fire Secretary Dong and dismantle the secretary's office. Sheng Anren frowned. She seemed to have thought of something, and her expression softened. That was to give the people in the company an explanation. If Yi Huanyan was in the secretary's office, she would probably be the one to be fired. This was within my expectations. Chiao Mu snickered. Was it within your expectations that he told me to find a new servant for Jinjiang Court? Chapter 268. Sheng Anren's face paled. "What did you say?" Chiao Mu scoffed. "You don't dare to believe it, right? He's planning to fire that servant called Lingling from Jinjiang Court and replace her with a new one." "He?" Sheng Anren's face was ashen. "Didn't you say he believed it?" "Yes, he believed it, but he still chose not to pursue the matter and pushed all the blame onto someone else, even though I already hinted to him that this matter wouldn't have anything to do with anyone else." "Then say more. Tell him that Yi Huanyan has ulterior motives." Chiao Mu glanced at her. "If I say another word, I'm afraid he'll fire me as well. What he wants is for himself and the people around him to believe that this matter has nothing to do with Yi Huanyan. He's deceiving himself." Sheng Anren was so angry that her face paled. "Is that so?" Chiao Mu took a deep breath and softened her voice. "In my eyes, he's just a bystander who's blinded by the situation. This matter had nothing to do with Yi Huanyan to begin with, but he believed the so-called evidence and thought that Yi Huanyan was the one who did it. Even though he harbored ill feelings, he still did not pursue Yi Huanyan's responsibility. He numbed himself and only vented his anger on those innocent people." "Don't tell me I can't do anything at all?" Sheng Anren collapsed onto the sofa with a pale face. Seeing her so despondent, Chiao Mu couldn't bear it and pulled her into her arms. "Must you stay by his side? He doesn't love you at all." Sheng Anren's face darkened. "Regardless of whether he loves me or not, I have to take this final gamble." Late at night, after Yi Huanyan delivered supper to the study, she chatted with Ling Han for a while. Seeing that he was absent-minded, she casually asked, "Are there any problems with the company's matters? Are the losses very big? Do you need me to take a look?" Ling Han looked up at her with an indifferent expression. "Are you very concerned about the company's matters?" Yi Huanyan smiled faintly. "After all, I used to be an employee of pleasure. Plus, it was the hard work of you and Uncle Ling. How could I not care? I thought this matter would be difficult to solve, but I didn't expect Guan Nai's identity to be related to the Eastern European royal family." "Really?" Ling Han's eyes had a hint of melancholy. "Are you blaming me for not telling you about this?" Yi Huanyan's heart skipped a beat. She was stunned. "I didn't mean that." At this time, Ling Han had already lowered his head, so Yi Huanyan could not see his expression. Although she was suspicious, after thinking for a while, she just treated it as a casual remark. After a while, Ling Han spoke again. Among the leaked information this time, only Su Nianhua's information was not leaked at all. When she heard the 3 words Su Nianhua, Yi Huanyan's face tensed up slightly. She was nervous because Ling Han treated Su Nianhua as a thorn in his side and always misunderstood her relationship with him. She could not help but feel a little uneasy, so before she spoke, she warned herself to be careful. "Is that so? Does he have any amazing information?" "Of course." He's a popular singer. Recently, he's at the stage of releasing a new album and going on a nationwide concert tour. If his relationship is exposed, it will be a huge blow to our company. However, recently, half of the entertainment industry has been implicated, so he has become a clean stream. Yi Huanyan looked indifferent and changed the topic. Then the company's financial losses this year should be made up for by the concert, right? Ling Han did not say anything for a long time. Yi Huanyan looked up at him and brushed the stray hair by her ear. She smiled gently and said, "Aren't you going to rest yet? It's 12 o'clock. You go rest first. There have been too many things to do in the company recently, and I also have a lot to deal with. I won't be able to accompany you properly for the next 2 days. Take care of yourself." Okay. After responding, Yi Huanyan got up from the sofa and prepared to leave. Before she left, she glanced at the tray on the coffee table and reminded, "Remember to eat supper. Ling will come to clean it up tomorrow morning." Ling Han lowered his head and did not look at the supper. He kept writing something in his hand and said in a flat tone, "I plan to replace Ling. I've already asked Xiao Mu to find a new person. You don't have any objections, right?" Yi Huanyan's heart tightened and she frowned. No. Ling Han was naturally suspicious. For the past 2 days, she had been investigating the issue regarding the leaking of confidential information within Huanyu. She suddenly remembered that day when she had taken the file and sent it to the study. After that, she had gone to answer the call. Then, when Ling had called her at the door for lunch, there was a period of time in between when she had not closed the study door. Perhaps she knew that it was not easy for her and Ling Han to get to where they were today. Even if she did not believe that Ling was that kind of person, she did not want to get into a conflict with Ling Han for no reason. She just wanted to protect herself and stay out of it. With a click, Yi Huanyan's figure disappeared. The study door closed, and the sound of the door turning stopped abruptly. The study returned to silence. Behind the desk, Ling Han stared at the door with a cold look in his eyes. He had lived in peace for too long. It was only now that he realized that Yi Huanyan was different from before. If it was in the past, she would always ask herself, why? But now, she carefully obeyed all of his decisions. Was she really accommodating him out of feelings, or was she deliberately avoiding something? The next morning, Yi Huanyan woke up to an empty space beside her. Clearly, he did not come back last night. When she opened the study door, he was no longer there. The supper on the coffee table was untouched. The layer on the bowl of beige porridge had solidified, and there was no warmth in it at all. Where's Ling Han? She went downstairs to find Ling. Ling was preparing breakfast. When she heard Yi Huanyan, she turned to look at her. Isn't he upstairs? Yi Huanyan shook her head. That's strange. Ling wiped her wet hands on her apron and looked in the direction of the entrance. I woke up at 5 in the morning, but I didn't see the young master come down. Yi Huanyan frowned. She did not know why, but she had a bad feeling in her heart. Seeing Yi Huanyan like this, Ling wiped her hands clean and went to the garage to take a look. When she came back, there was a gentle smile in her eyes. Miss Yi, the young master's usual car, is not in the garage. He probably drove out. Maybe he had something to do at the company. Don't worry. Yi Huanyan nodded. She held her phone and turned to walk to the backyard. As she walked, she dialed Ling Han's number. The call went through quickly. A familiar voice came through. What's wrong? When she heard this voice, Yi Huanyan breathed a sigh of relief. When did you leave? This morning. Did something happen at the company again? Nothing big. Don't wait for me for lunch. I still have a meeting. I'm hanging up. After hanging up the phone, Yi Huanyan slowly exhaled. She just thought that the uneasiness in her heart was just her imagination. Maybe she really had too much free time recently. Chapter 269. In a steamy hot pot restaurant in Lanjiang City, in a private room for two, Sun Yanhua raised the corner of his mouth, picked up a piece of mutton, and dipped it in the clear soup pot. Then he put it in the sesame sauce plate and stuffed it into his mouth while looking at the delicate face behind the fog that was faintly about to collapse. If Miss Sheng can't stand the smell of the hot pot, you still have time to leave before your clothes are stained with the smell. Sheng Anren stared at Sun Yanhua with a cold face. If it weren't for the fact that she had something important to talk to him about, she would have fled the moment she stepped into the restaurant. Thinking of the purpose of her visit, she calmed down. I don't think there's any conflict between us, right? There's no friendship between us. Sun Yanhua sneered and picked up the meat in the clear soup pot with his chopsticks. You deliberately chose this place to eat to take revenge on me, for Yi Huanyan? Sheng Anren's eyes sparkled. Isn't it a little childish? Sun Yanhua frowned. You're thinking too much. I hope I'm thinking too much, Mr. Lu Shan. Hearing this, Sun Yanhua's action of picking up the meat paused slightly. He slowly raised his head and looked at Sheng Anren. Why did you ask me to come here? I want to make a deal with you. As soon as she said that, Sun Yanhua sneered. What makes you think you can make a deal with me? Because you can't forget Yi Huanyan, and I'm determined to get Ling Han. Sun Yanhua's face darkened. What do you mean? Don't worry, I didn't bring any recording equipment. I just want to tell you that Yi Huanyan can't forget you. If it weren't for the child in her belly, I'm afraid she would have left Ling Han long ago. Don't you know that the reason why you were able to escape unscathed from the recent scandals in the entertainment industry was because of who created the opportunity for you? Sun Yanhua's heart suddenly skipped a beat. What are you trying to say? Sheng Anren slowly waved away the water mist and said softly, Hua Tian's concert clashed with yours, but it just so happened that he took drugs at this time, which directly caused the sales of albums with the same style as yours to plummet. Your new album had just been announced, but the title song was already sold out in advance, and the tickets for your concerts all over the country for the whole year were also sold out in advance. In addition, Chun Mingyan's movie is currently on a roadshow. Even the lead actress, Liu Yufei, has been exposed. Only the singer of the movie's theme song, Sun Yanhua, has become a clear stream. How did your otherworldly persona manage to step on so many people to get to where you are? Don't you feel anything in your heart at all? Yi Huanyan isn't even working at pleasure anymore. She's putting in a lot of effort to promote you. You're saying that these are all yen. Sun Yanhua's eyes were in a daze, and he showed an expression of disbelief at Sheng Anren's words. Do you think that just anyone can get that artist file? Ling Han fired the only chief secretary in the secretary's office, blocked her mouth, and even changed the servants around Yi Huanyan. Why do you think that is? Without waiting for Sun Yanhua to speak, the corners of Sheng Anren's mouth raised into a mocking smile. It's just that he didn't care about her for the sake of the child in her belly. When the child is born, in Ling Han's eyes, Yi Huanyan will be a woman who betrayed him for another man. Sun Yanhua's mind went blank. These days, the pre-sales of his album and concert tickets were surprisingly good. He didn't even need to promote himself. He was still wondering what was going on. So it was like this? Was it really like this? Such a woman who is so devoted to you, are you willing to leave her with a man who doesn't love her for the sake of your career? Sheng Anren's words finally made Sun Yanhua come back to his senses. He took a deep breath and barely calmed down. Why should I believe your words? Yan and Ling Han don't love each other. She knows best in her heart. Ling Han is really good to her now. How do I know if you are up to no good? Ling Han is good to her. Sheng Anren suddenly showed a surprised look and then laughed sarcastically. What do you know? Ling Han can't fall in love with her at all, and he will never be good to her. Do you know what the entanglement between Yi Huanyan and Ling Han is? A craft paper bag was pushed from Sheng Anren's hand to his hand, accompanied by her sneer. Take a look. Opening the craft paper bag, there were only a few pages of records inside, but Sun Yanhua's brain exploded with a buzz. How is that possible? It says that Yan Yan's mother hired someone to kill Ling Han's mother? Ling Han, he knows all about it. Sheng Anren nodded and looked indifferent. Otherwise, why do you think he tortured Yi Huanyan again and again? If he was really good to her, Do you think Ling Han would still be entangled with me? He doesn't love her at all. He hates her. Su Nianhua's face was pale. It turned out to be such a reason. No wonder when Yi Huanyan mentioned her and Ling Han in front of her, she always hesitated and looked timid. All of this was simply revenge. He shouldn't have let go of Yi Huanyan so easily. Why was he so stupid? Hey, where are you going? Shang Anren exclaimed and looked at Su Nianhua, who got up and was about to leave, with a look of surprise. Of course I'm going to find Yan Yan. I want to take her away from Ling Han. Do you think she'll go with you? Shang Anren stood up and said anxiously, Don't forget why she separated from you 10 years ago. Have you solved the problem 10 years ago? Without protection, would she dare to take risks for you again? She's pregnant with Ling Han's child. Su Nianhua's face darkened. He stood at the door of the private room for a few seconds, and suddenly found a trace of reason. He slowly turned around and sat down again. He looked at Shang Anren seriously and said, You didn't come to me just to tell me this. Since you've investigated so many things and know so much, you can't not have a way, right? Of course I have a way. It just depends on how sincere you are to her and how much effort you're willing to put in. A sharp light flashed through Shang Anren's eyes, and it was drowned in the dense fog. After Su Nianhua left, Shang Anren stood up and left the private room. He directly pushed open the door of the private room next door and sat down. Qiao Mu was the only one sitting in the adjacent private room. She ordered food, but the hot pot stove was not turned on. There was no smoke in the private room at all, making it appear very cold and cheerless. It was only a door partition, so she could clearly hear what was said on the other side. Even if Su Nianhua really is willing to do as you say, how can you be sure that he can persuade his mother? Shang Anren curled his lips into a seductive and dangerous smile. He's the only son in the family. For Yi Huanyan, he fell out with the family so harshly. It's already been 10 years, but the family can't do anything to him. Besides, even if they don't agree with Yi Huanyan, that child has to admit it, right? Chapter 270. As night fell, the sound of cicadas and frogs could be heard from the green belt of Jinjiang Court. Yi Huanyan sat at the dining table with her chin in her hands and stared in the direction of the door. Lingling had already urged her several times. Seeing that the food was getting cold, she said again, Miss Yi, why don't you eat first? You see, young master is really busy at the company these days. Even though he promised you that he would come back, he might not be able to find the time. Yi Huanyan took a deep breath and nodded slowly. Okay, then I'll help you heat up the food. It's okay. Take away all the other dishes. I'll just have some porridge. As they were talking, the sound of a car slowly coming to a stop at the door sounded. Yi Huanyan's eyes lit up. She supported her waist as she stood up and looked toward the door. Not long after, a figure in a suit and leather shoes appeared at the entrance. You're back. You haven't eaten yet, right? Yi Huanyan hurriedly called out to Lingling. Lingling, hurry and heat up the food. Ling Han put down his jacket and glanced at Yi Huanyan. It's okay. I've already eaten. With that said, he walked towards the stairs. Dong. The sound of the door closing came from the direction of the study on the second floor. The whole room shook. Yi Huanyan held the corner of a table and felt a sense of loss. She couldn't explain what she was feeling these days. She always felt that Ling Han was deliberately avoiding her. He came back very late every day and left very early in the morning. He never stayed in the room at night. The chances for the two of them to talk were getting fewer and fewer. Every time she wanted to ask something, he would say that he had work to do, or suddenly call to interrupt the conversation. She had no choice but to leave resentfully. On TV, it was often said that pregnancy could lead to depression. She tried her best to think positively, but she couldn't help worrying all day. While Lingling went to heat up the food, she walked up the stairs step by step and knocked on the study door. Come in. Ling Han's voice sounded a little distant. After entering the room, Yi Huanyan closed the door and stood at the door looking at him. What's the matter? he asked. Yi Huanyan pursed her lips. Han, have you been very busy recently? It's all right. Everyone could tell that such an answer was perfunctory. She refused to give up and asked, Do you have something to ask me? Ling Han frowned and looked at her. What do you mean? You came to me just to tell me this? Yen, I'm pretty busy. You should go to bed early after dinner. Where did you eat in the evening? She asked. With a client. But you said you would come back for dinner. Don't you have any explanation? Her voice suddenly sounded a little anxious, with an urgent questioning tone. The coldness of the past few days was completely out of her expectations. She didn't know what had happened. She didn't know if there was any misunderstanding between them. She also didn't know what Ling Han was doing outside. Are you done yet? Ling Han's face darkened, and his voice was already very impatient. I also said on the phone that if I had something to do, I would be late. I asked you to eat by yourself first. If I have something to do you want me to leave the client and rush back to eat this unimportant meal with you? Yi Huanyan was burned by the irritation in his eyes. She panicked a few steps and finally opened the door and left silently. She didn't want to quarrel with him. After closing the door, she recalled how she looked like a resentful woman just now and wanted to slap herself. Perhaps Ling Han had given her too many misconceptions a while ago, making her think that the two of them really liked each other. When it came to relationships, they were always greedy. No matter how much they got, they would always want more. After Yi Huanyan left, the study was filled with coldness. With a crash, the desk lamp and a stack of documents fell to the ground. The piercing coldness in his eyes was reflected on the broken glasses. When Ling Han went downstairs, he heard voices in the dining room. Miss Yi, don't think too much. Young master is too busy. You have to eat more for the sake of the child. Ling, I really can't eat anymore. Forget it. You have to drink this soup. From the angle of the stairs, he could see a stubborn and lonely figure with a bitter face in front of a bowl of soup. He frowned and felt a little annoyed when he thought of his impatient attitude just now. Ling was trying to persuade him when she saw a figure coming from the corner of her eye. She was stunned and quietly left under Ling Han's signal. A pair of well-defined hands pulled out a chair and sat down. Why aren't you eating? Yi Huanyan was slightly stunned. She slowly raised her head, and there was a hint of surprise in her eyes. My attitude just now is bad. I've been too busy recently and couldn't take care of you. I was indeed eating with a client today and forgot to promise you. It won't happen again. As soon as he finished speaking, Yi Huanyan's eyes welled up with tears. She looked at him as if she was about to cry. Yen, she turned around and wiped her tears. She choked and said, I'm fine. I know you're busy. I just can't control my emotions recently. I might be suffering from pregnancy depression. Why don't you find a doctor to check me out? Ling Han was startled at first, but when he thought about how he had neglected her these past few days, he couldn't help but feel vexed in his heart. Soon after, he revealed a somewhat gentle gaze, and his tone also became gentler. I was impatient with you. Eat first, you're fine. Yi Huanyan turned around. Her eyes were red. Under Ling Han's gaze, she drank a bowl of soup and ate some millet porridge. To accompany her, Ling Han also ate half a bowl. After eating, Ling Han put down the work at hand and coaxed her upstairs to rest. Seeing that Ling Han was so concerned about her, Yi Huanyan felt even more certain that she had been too suspicious before. She blamed him like a resentful woman, made trouble out of nothing, and made him worry. Thinking of how she had run to the study to question him without asking the reason after he came back, she felt very guilty and blamed herself. She felt very embarrassed. Not long after lying down, seeing that he was still accompanying her, she simply urged him to go to work and not to care about her. Are you really not angry? I'm not angry. She shook her head. She leaned against the pillow and stared at him with watery eyes. Ling Han smiled and took her hand. He leaned over and planted a kiss on her forehead. He said softly, Be good. The sooner I finish my work, the sooner I can come back to accompany you. Yi Huanyan's face was immediately dyed with a layer of red. She nodded obediently. After Ling Han left, Yi Huanyan was just about to fall asleep when the sound of her phone ringing woke her up. After she picked up the call, the voice on the other end stunned her. She sat up in bed. "I'm fine. I'm doing pretty well now. Meet? Why are you looking for me? Tomorrow? Tomorrow afternoon? Okay. I should be fine." When she hung up the phone, Ling Han had just opened the door. Seeing that she was talking on the phone, he asked casually, "It's so late. Who is it?" Yi Huanyan's expression froze. She hesitated for a few seconds. "Nothing. It's just an old friend of mine asking me something." Ling Han nodded slightly. He didn't ask any more questions. He just picked up a stack of magazines from the table in the room and turned to leave. When he closed the door, he suddenly caught a glimpse of Yi Huanyan's disappointed look from the corner of his eye. A trace of doubt arose in his heart for no reason. Chapter 271. In the main city of Lanjiang City, in a very stylishly decorated cafe, Yi Huanyan saw a dignified and elegant woman sitting by the window as soon as she entered. She wasn't familiar with her, but she definitely wasn't a stranger. The woman was dressed in a moon-white Chanel suit. Her long hair was neatly combed on top of her head, revealing the beautiful lines of her neck. She held a porcelain white coffee cup in her hand and slowly tasted it. Probably because she took good care of herself, Yi Huanyan felt that she didn't look any different from 10 years ago. Beside her was a low-key green-gray Hermes bag with a logo facing the inside. People who didn't know the goods would easily think that it was a fake. In Yi Huanyan's hand was the one that Ling Han had given her. Except for the color, it was almost exactly the same. It was handmade, and there was only one of each color in the world. They hadn't seen each other for 10 years, but she was still so elegant, dignified, low-key, and luxurious. When she saw Yi Huanyan, her eyes slightly paused and fell on her obviously bulging belly. "Come, sit down." Yi Huanyan nodded and sat down. "How many months?" she asked with concern. Yi Huanyan rubbed her belly and smiled very gently. "It's almost 7 months." Hearing this, the beautiful woman smiled slightly. Her expression was very gentle and loving. She looked like a different person from 10 years ago. She raised her hand and asked the waiter to bring a glass of hot milk. She said softly, "You're pregnant. Drink some milk." Yi Huanyan frowned. "Auntie Lu, it's okay. If you have something to say, just say it." Auntie Lu was Lucian's mother, Zhao Peisheng. The last time they met was more than 10 years ago. She was wearing a school uniform and was stopped at the school gate. At that time, she was invited into a limited edition Porsche that she didn't know much about. At that time, Zhao Peisheng's words were very concise. "I heard that you're dating my son, Lu Shun. Although there's no need to meet you, I still want to remind you that Lu Shun won't be with you for a long time. Our Lu family won't accept a girl like you." The 17-year-old Yi Huanyan still didn't understand what a girl like her meant. At that time, she only said, "Auntie Lu, please get Lu Shun to talk to me personally about breaking up." It was only when she saw Jiang Mila nodding and bowing in front of Zhao Peisheng, respectfully addressing her as Mrs. Lu, and stuttering about the company's investment, that she understood how important it was to be matched in terms of social status. Her relationship with Lu Shun was nothing in the face of reality. Now that Zhao Peisheng was sitting in front of her, she seemed to have gone through a lot of hardships. Lu Shun's falling out with his family had probably given her a lot of trouble. Yi Huanyan was also considered to be in the circle, so she had heard some things about the Lu family. It was nothing more than some rumors about President Lu being involved in some scandals outside, and she vaguely heard that he had an illegitimate child. It was probably very upsetting for Zhao Peisheng. "I know about what happened between you and Lu Shun. Back then, I was too arbitrary. After all these years, I've thought it through. Whatever Lu Shun wants to do, I'll just let him do it. I just want him to be by my side peacefully." Yi Huanyan seemed to understand these words, but she also didn't seem to understand them. "It's nothing. It's all in the past. Lu Shen won't bear a grudge against you. What about you? She suddenly asked. Yi Huanyan was slightly stunned. After hesitating for a few seconds, she shook her head. You didn't do anything wrong back then. It was all for Lu Shen. I don't have the right to hate you, and I really don't hate you. Are you speaking from the bottom of your heart? She seemed to be anxious to get Yi Huanyan's affirmation. There was a look of anticipation in her eyes that confused Yi Huanyan. Yi Huanyan nodded hesitantly. Yes. After this nod, Zhao Peisheng looked relieved. That's good. That's good. Live well with Lu Shen in the future. Our Lu family won't mistreat you. What? Yi Huanyan looked at her in surprise. You want me to live with Lu Shen? Zhao Peisheng wasn't surprised when she saw her shocked expression. She sighed. I know what you're worried about. Don't worry, I'll convince Lu Shen's father. There's no need to make a big fuss about the wedding. After all, you're pregnant. It's not too late to hold a make-up ceremony later. Let's get married first. Yi Huanyan almost laughed out loud. She couldn't believe what she had just heard. You want me to get married with Lu Shen? Are you kidding? Hearing this, Zhao Peisheng frowned. How am I kidding? Lu Shen is the same age as you this year. He's 27 years old, and he works in that kind of industry. If he really brings a C-list celebrity home one day, his father will definitely not agree. What's more, he's still thinking about you. No one else is interested in him at all. But it can't be me. Yi Huanyan spread her hands. How can I marry him? Zhao Peisheng frowned. What do you mean? Do you still think that Lu Shen isn't good enough for you? Seeing this, Yi Huanyan frowned. She got up and grabbed her bag to leave. Auntie Lu, I don't know why you're here, but please don't joke with me. It's impossible between Lu Shen and me. After saying this, she walked toward the door. At this moment, the door of the cafe jingled. Amidst the waiter's welcome, a familiar figure walked toward her. He was tall and straight, and his eyes were cold. Before Yi Huanyan could react, Zhao Peisheng had already walked up to her with her bag. She grabbed her arm and asked, You're already pregnant, but you still don't want to marry him. What do you mean by this? Yi Huanyan glanced at the man's voice from the corner of her eye. She said anxiously, What does my pregnancy have to do with marriage? Auntie Lu, please let go of me. There was a chill on the man's face. He looked at them coldly from 3 or 4 steps away, but he didn't say anything. Seeing that Yi Huanyan didn't give her face, Zhao Peisheng's face turned pale. Her tone became arrogant. Lu Shen has been thinking about you all these years. For the past 10 years, he didn't walk the path that his family had paved for him. For you, he tried so hard to enter the entertainment industry. Now that he's finally back, he's begging me to marry you. Don't be so ungrateful. Yi Huanyan had expected that it was hard to change a person's nature. Zhao Peisheng couldn't hide the arrogance in her bones. But she never expected that such a chaotic scene would play out in front of Ling Han. She couldn't defend herself. In a hurry, she said, Lu Shen said he wanted to get married, so you came to me. Have you ever thought that I don't want to marry him at all? You don't want to get married? If you really don't want to, why are you pregnant with Lu Shen's child? Don't think that I won't dare to do anything to you just because you're pregnant. Just because I'm giving you a way out, you should hurry up and accept it. Lu Shen's child. Yi Huanyan froze. She looked up and met the eyes that had been staring at her for a long time. She only felt her heart tremble, and her hands and feet turn cold. Yi Huanyan, this show that you directed and acted by yourself is really interesting. His face was cold, and the corners of his lips trembled a few times. He gritted his teeth and said these words. A self-deprecating smile flashed across his eyes. Chapter 272. Yi Huanyan did not expect Ling Han's sudden appearance. At first, she thought that Zhao Peisheng had misunderstood something after hearing something from someone and came to pester her endlessly. She could just ask Lu Shen about this matter and forget about it. But these words fell into Ling Han's ears. No one knew better than Yi Huanyan how fragile the trust between her and Ling Han was. No one knew better than her that what was bitterly supporting this layer of trust was the true bloodline of the child in her belly. Ling Han could not doubt Zhao Peisheng's identity and words. Her eyes were filled with unspeakable bitterness. She stared blankly at Ling Han and said, "Believe me, I really don't know what she's talking about." When Zhao Peisheng saw Yi Huanyan suddenly looking at the man in front of her and speaking, she was stunned. She frowned and looked at Ling Han. "Who are you? What do you have to do with Yi Huanyan?" Yi Huanyan's heart was full of anxiety. She was not in the mood to deal with Zhao Peisheng. She just looked at Ling Han and anxiously waited for his response. "Let's go." He spat out this word coldly. Then he grabbed her arm and walked toward the door, without any explanation. Her high heels made a crisp sound as she chased after him all the way to the entrance of the cafe. "Hey, who are you? What's wrong with you? Where are you taking her?" Ling Han unceremoniously stuffed Yi Huanyan into the passenger's seat. After closing the door, he turned and stared at Zhao Peisheng condescendingly. His eyes were full of coldness. He said in a deep voice, "It's none of your business." "What are you talking about?" "She's pregnant with my child." "My wife is pregnant with your child." "I really don't know how Mrs. Liu can say something like that." Zhao Peisheng thought Ling Han looked familiar. When she heard this, she was suddenly stunned. She stared at him blankly. Something flashed in her mind. She exclaimed, "Your pleasures." Before he could finish a sentence, he heard the sound of the door closing. The black car drove away, leaving Zhao Peisheng standing in place with a look of disbelief on his face. The atmosphere in the carriage was extremely gloomy. Yi Huanyan wanted to speak several times, but she was frightened by the speed at which he was driving. She could only hold on tightly to her seatbelt, unable to say a word. Driving all the way back to Jinjiang Park, Ling Han's foot on the accelerator almost never loosened. When he received the text message in the morning, it only gave him an address and said, "You should take a look at Yi Huanyan's true face." Then he went there doubtfully. Lanjiang City was only so big, and they would often see each other when doing business. They had met many times at various business cocktail parties. Although he usually did not deliberately remember the family members of the bosses of various companies, this woman was Sun Yanhua's mother, and he had checked all the information about Sun Yanhua, a woman who had personally forced her son to break up with his ex-girlfriend 10 years ago. What reason could she have for meeting her son's ex-girlfriend now? He didn't understand, so he wanted to see for himself. Sure enough, it was a good show. When they arrived at Jinjiang Park, Yi Huanyan covered her mouth, pushed open the door in a hurry, and staggered to the door. She held on to the camphor tree at the door and vomited violently, almost vomiting bile. She only felt very dizzy. Before she could recover, a huge tearing force came from the crook of her arm. Ignoring her staggering footsteps, it violently dragged her to the living room and slammed her hard on the living room carpet. She covered her stomach and looked up in pain. There was no time to panic. She knew that at this time, she had to explain this misunderstanding as soon as possible. "Han, I don't know what she meant by those words. Listen to me, I really don't know what she's talking about." "Really? Then tell me, why did you want to meet with her today?" Last night. Who was it that called you in the middle of the night?" Seeing that she was speechless, a trace of pain flashed through Ling Han's eyes. He didn't hide his disappointment in Yi Huanyan at this moment and growled, "Yi Huanyan, when are you going to stop acting?" Hearing this, Yi Huanyan's body stiffened and subconsciously shrank back. She felt his anger and understood his pain. She trembled as she looked at him, begging him to trust her even a little bit. "Han, it's not like that." She shook her head in pain. "Don't tell me that, even now, you still want to tell me that this child is mine?" That pair of hands roughly grabbed her collar and lifted her in front of his chest. His scarlet eyes looked as if they were about to spit fire. "Sun Yanhua's mother has already come to marry you. You've already done everything you wanted to do. Do you still insist on telling me that this child is mine?" Yi Huanyan didn't understand what he meant by everything you wanted to do. She only thought that he was extremely angry, and that whatever he said was just to vent his anger. She was anxious. She raised her finger to the sky and swore, sobbing, "It's yours, Han. Listen to me. This child, I swear on my life that this child is really yours." Looking at her tearful yet stubborn face, looking at her tear-streaked face, looking at her watery eyes, even though she was pregnant, she seemed to be as pure and lovely as ever. He couldn't help but feel pity for her. It was this appearance that tricked him into softening his heart many times and not pursuing her. At this moment, Ling Han didn't feel any heartache. He only felt that his hands and feet were gradually becoming cold. How much he had once felt for her, how much he regretted what he had done to her, how much he was disappointed now. She had planned every step to take revenge on herself for the future of her ex-boyfriend, Su Nianhua, whom she missed dearly, and for her own future. She had already done it, but now she still wanted to treat him as a fool and use the child in her belly to deceive him? What else did she want? He thought of the inheritance left behind by the old lady. Even this, she was still thinking about it. Thinking of this, he sneered. The angry expression on his face gradually disappeared, leaving only a lingering chill and the coldness in his eyes. He slowly released his hand and threw her to the ground. He said coldly, "Then go for an amniocentesis." "You don't believe me?" Yi Huanyan lay on the ground, trembling all over. "I only believe in evidence." With a bang, the door was closed and the entire living room fell into a dead silence. The sound of the car starting at the door circled in her ears and then gradually disappeared. Yi Huanyan only felt that her entire world had fallen into silence. It was blank and she couldn't catch anything. These days, the peaceful years were actually fragile, like a thin layer of window paper. The two of them comforted each other and blinded each other, trying to turn a blind eye to the cracks that had long existed. They were delusional that they could live like this for a lifetime. Now that he woke up first, he forced her to wake up quickly. "Miss Yi," an anxious shout came from the darkness, as if someone had helped her up and left the cold ground. But why was her heart so cold? Chapter 273. Throughout the night, Yi Huanyan had nightmares intermittently. She was so frightened that she broke out in a cold sweat. Ling Ling stayed by her side, worried that something might have happened to her. The next morning, before Yi Huanyan woke up, she heard a quarrel coming from downstairs. "What are you doing? You can't go up." Not long after, the door to the master bedroom was pushed open. Two tall men, who looked like bodyguards, walked straight to the bed. Yi Huanyan had already woken up. She clutched the blanket tightly and looked at the two men in horror. "Who are you? What do you want?" One of them said, "Miss Yi, please cooperate with us to go to the hospital." As if a basin of cold water had been poured over her head, she stared blankly at the two men in front of her. She trembled and said, "Ling Han, did Ling Han ask you to come?" "Yes, since don't make things difficult for us." As soon as he finished speaking, Yi Huanyan's face was completely drained of blood. She was as white as a sheet of paper. Her eyes widened and she suddenly shrank back. "I'm not going." Even though it was said to be a risk-free amniocentesis, it was still harmful to the fetus. She would rather give the child an explanation after the child was born than let the child take a little risk now. "Miss Yi, don't blame us for being rude if you do this." Without waiting for Yi Huanyan to respond, the two men held Yi Huanyan on either side and violently took her out of the villa with the blanket. Ling Ling followed behind them and screamed. She even punched and kicked, but she was pushed to the ground by one of the men impatiently. She couldn't stand up for a long time. She struggled, roared, and finally fainted. Yi Huanyan was directly stuffed into the back of the car and taken to a highly confidential private hospital. Ling Han had been waiting for a long time at the entrance of the hospital's operating room. Yi Huanyan was only wearing her pajamas and shoes. She didn't even have the strength to walk. She was carried out of the elevator by two bodyguards and thrown in front of Ling Han like a prisoner about to be executed. Ling Han was standing at the entrance of the operating room. When he saw her feet dragging on the ground and drawing blood, A flash of heartache flashed across his eyes. However, when he thought of the knot in his heart that was difficult to resolve, he held it in. The nurses pushed the surgical trolley over and helped her onto the bed. She no longer had the strength to struggle, so all she could do was stare blankly at Ling Han, as if she was still waiting for him to be kind at the last moment. Ling Han, on the other hand, looked at her coldly with a cruel gaze. It wasn't until Yi Huanyan was about to be sent into the operating room that he couldn't help but speak up behind her. When the paternity test results are out, if it's really mine, I'll accept whatever request you make. Yi Huanyan closed her eyes. Two streams of tears flowed from the corners of her eyes. I hate you, Ling Han. The door to the operating room slowly closed. In the boring and cold blue and white corridor, a black figure stood there for a long time. His expression was cold. From the beginning of the operation to the end, his expression didn't change until the doctor in the operating room took off his mask and walked out. The pregnant woman is fine. The sample has been successfully taken. Come with me to get a sample. His furrowed brows finally relaxed. As if he was relieved, he nodded slightly and followed the doctor. He hoped that this knot in his heart could be resolved. As long as this child was his, he could let go of all previous grudges. He really wanted this child to be his. Even if doing this would make Yi Huanyan hate him, he was willing to pay the price. As long as this child was his, he would use the rest of his life to make it up to her. In the sampling room, the hair and blood samples were carefully collected. The nurse raised her head and smiled at Ling Han. It's done, sir. You can go check on the pregnant woman now. The results will be out tomorrow. Ling Han nodded indifferently. He pulled back his arm, threw away the cotton ball that the nurse gave him to stop the bleeding, pulled down his sleeve, and walked toward the door indifferently. After he left, the nurse stared at the collected samples, and a strange look flashed through her eyes. As soon as he walked out of the sampling room, he saw Chiao Mu hurrying over and waving the bag in his hand. President Ling, everything went well. President Lu's wife cooperated with us very well. This is the sample she just gave me. Ling Han glanced at it and then looked away. He frowned and said in a low voice, "Send it in." Chiao Mu nodded quickly and sent the sample into the sampling room. When he came out, Ling Han was waiting for the elevator to go to the inpatient department. He walked forward. Thinking of what Ling Han asked him to do last night, he was very puzzled and asked cautiously, "President Ling, isn't it not too good to tell Madame Lu about this matter too clearly?" Ling Han's eyes darkened. "You also think that this kind of thing shouldn't be publicized?" Chiao Mu frowned and did not know what to say. Ling Han just snorted. "I don't care what other people think of me. I only know that if this child is not Sun Yanhua's, she will probably still pester Yi Huanyan." Chiao Mu blurted out, "Why don't you just show her the test report between you and the child?" After saying this, his heart suddenly tightened, and he looked at Ling Han in panic. Sure enough, his eyes were overflowing with coldness. Chiao Mu regretted his slip of the tongue. If he really believed that this child was his, why would he come to do this paternity test? In the single ward of the inpatient department, there was no need to stay in the hospital after the sampling, but Yi Huanyan fainted due to exhaustion, so the doctor had to give her an 4-drip to maintain the speed of her recovery. When Ling Han opened the door, she was still unconscious. The nurse was adjusting the speed of the 4-drip. Seeing Ling Han come, she quickly packed up and left. Only he and Yi Huanyan were left in the ward. She was lying on the bed, and her face was almost one with the sheets, pale and weak. A ray of sunlight shone on her face from outside the window. She moved uncomfortably, and her eyelashes trembled twice. Ling Han hurriedly pulled down the blinds. She slept very quietly, and her pale face was expressionless. Her arm for the 4-drip was placed on the side with a needle in it, and she was excessively thin. She did not wake up even when the 4-drip was over. It's not a big problem. She just fell asleep because she was too tired. Just wait a little longer. The doctor came to see her twice, and they both gave the same diagnosis. Later, the doctor called him outside alone and sighed. The pregnant woman should be awake already, but she won't open her eyes. I won't say the reason, but President Ling should know that in such a situation, she doesn't need to stay in the hospital. It would be better for her to recuperate at home. Ling Han wrapped her in a blanket, carried her in his arms, put her in the car, and sent her back to Jinjiang Park. The master bedroom on the second floor had been refurbished, and the partition wall in the middle had been removed. It had been completely restored to its original appearance. There was a gorgeous, misty blue bed that was incomparably soft. Ling Ling lifted the blanket and helped Ling Han settle her down. Then, she looked at Ling Han's expression and carefully left. Ling Han covered her with a blanket and said softly, "I know you don't want to see me now, and I know that the paternity test is very difficult for you to accept. I just want to tell you that as long as I confirm that this child is mine, then we will live happily in the future. I won't care about everything in the past, and I won't take my anger out on you." Chapter 274. After Ling Han said this, he reached out his hand, wanting to help her brush away the stray strands of hair on her face. However, when he touched her, he saw the tears falling from the corners of her eyes, as well as the cold words she said. "Don't touch me." Her eyes were red and swollen. God knows how many times she had cried and shed tears for him. His hand paused in midair and gradually tightened into a fist before he withdrew it. Until Ling Han left, Yi Huanyan did not open her eyes to look at him. She just wanted to be alone in silence and wait for her wounds to heal. New wounds continued to be added, but the speed of healing could not keep up with the speed of his knife cutting into her body. He hated her so much and refused to believe her words. How could she believe that what he had just said was true or false? Or how long was it going to last? At the same time, at the Los Angeles airport, which was an ocean away from Lan River, Ji Xiaoya was wearing a British trench coat and pulling a silver suitcase to check in at the check-in counter. She was dressed very fashionably, but her broken English betrayed her. At that moment, she was gesticulating with the staff at the check-in counter. Give me a seat by the window." Her brain suddenly froze, and she cursed under her breath. D***, how do you say window in English? The staff at the check-in counter was a blonde girl with blue eyes. At that moment, she was looking at her blankly. No matter how many times she heard her say it or watched her act, she did not understand. She spread her hands and smiled helplessly at her. Out of courtesy, she asked a few times, "What? Please say it again." Ji Xiaoya stood in front of the check-in counter, scratching her ears and cheeks anxiously. Suddenly, a deep male voice came from behind her. It was fluent English and had a pure London accent. Please give this lady a seat by the window." "Thank you." The blonde girl immediately understood and nodded. Before she lowered her head, she gave the man a passionate and bold smile. Ji Xiaoya turned around and saw the man a meter away. At that moment, he had turned around and was talking to the person behind him. Only the back of his head was exposed. He was very tall and had a nice voice. Why was he an old man? "Sir, thank you." She smiled and thanked the figure. "Sir." The silver-haired man turned his head. His facial features were handsome, and his silver hair made his skin look even more translucent. The cross stud on his left ear glowed with a noble cold light. At this moment, his deep eyes were looking at her playfully, and he asked in native Chinese, "Am I that old?" The moment he turned around, Ji Xiaoya felt a cool fragrance enter her nose. When she saw that face and heard that voice, she suddenly felt her head buzzing. She couldn't say a single word as she stuttered. How could there be such a good-looking man in this world? Was it a dream? She was so stunned that she didn't even hear the blonde behind her reminding her that the check-in was complete several times. The silver-haired man looked at her with a smile that was not a smile. Then he took a step forward with his slender legs and walked in front of her. Then he calmly smiled at the blonde girl and took the ticket from the check-in counter and handed it to her. "Miss your things." The blonde girl's kind laughter came from behind, and Ji Xiaoya suddenly came back to her senses. With a bang, Ji Xiaoya's face flushed red. She hurriedly took the ticket from the man's hand. Her fingers touched the warmth of his palm, and her whole body stiffened. She quickly bowed and stammered, "Thank you, thank you." The silver-haired man raised his eyebrows, leaned over slightly, and whispered in her ear, "It's my honor to serve a beautiful girl." When he spoke, the minty scent that he exhaled overwhelmed all of her senses in an instant. It flowed rapidly through her body, and she only felt as if her whole body was numb and the world was spinning. She stood there in a daze for a long time until the blonde behind her reminded her, "I'm sorry, miss. You can leave now." Suppressed laughter came from all around. Ji Xiaoya, who was always bold and lively, was so embarrassed that she couldn't show her face and almost ran away. When she got on the plane, she sat in the first-class seat and slowly breathed a sigh of relief. She opened the shades and stared blankly at the airport outside. That face was still lingering in her mind. His silver hair was elegant, which was incompatible with his age, but it was completely compatible with his face. Did he dye his hair? He didn't look like a non-mainstream person. Was he a celebrity? He looked like a good gentleman. She let her imagination run wild and lamented in her heart. If such a good-looking man appeared again, she would definitely ask for his contact information. She had been busy with the things that Feng Shang ordered all over Los Angeles, so she hadn't had a good night's sleep in a long time. After thinking for a while, she felt sleepy, so she simply pulled down the shades and closed her eyes to rest. When she fell asleep, she only felt that someone gently placed something next to her. It was probably a passenger next to her, so she didn't pay much attention and leaned against the window, until the voice of the air stewardess sounded in the cabin. "All passengers, please fasten your seatbelts and keep all communication devices turned off. Our plane is about to take off, miss." Accompanied by the feeling of being shrouded by a shadow, someone gently patted her shoulder. Ji Xiaoya rubbed her eyes and looked sleepily at the blonde air stewardess in front of her with a blank expression. The air stewardess mumbled in English. She was not fully awake, and at this moment she looked as if she didn't understand and hurriedly asked her to speak slower. "Fasten your seatbelt, we're about to take off." A kind reminder came from beside her, and it was in familiar and kind Chinese. She suddenly understood and nodded repeatedly, lowering her head to fasten her seat belt. The air stewardess smiled and left. "Thank you." Ji Xiaoya fastened her seat belt, yawned, and looked up. Then her mouth remained open for a long time, and she looked as if she had been petrified. She didn't come back to her senses for a long time. The silver-haired man beside her was looking at her with a meaningful smile. You, why are you here?" She opened her eyes wide and spoke incoherently, looking as if she couldn't believe it. The silver-haired man beside her curled up the corners of his mouth. His smile was a little devilish, and his deep voice was also very charming. "Because I told the lady at the check-in desk to arrange for me to be next to a beautiful lady. This way, I will be very grateful to her." Ji Xiaoya swallowed hard. She could be considered a pretty girl from a humble family, so she still had this much self-awareness. If he were to say that she was a beautiful lady, she really wouldn't be so narcissistic. When she heard this, she looked a little embarrassed and smiled foolishly. Then you should be a little disappointed." "On the contrary, I'm very grateful to the lady at the check-in desk for making such an arrangement for me." His eyes were gentle, and he spoke with a sense of propriety. Even if he was teasing her, he still had a gentlemanly demeanor. "I just don't know if the beautiful lady will feel that she has been disturbed by me during this journey." Ji Xiaoya's mouth, which had just closed, opened involuntarily. She stared at him with a pair of big eyes in a daze. She didn't know where her intuition came from, but the man in front of her was indeed the one for her. Although this business trip was so tiring that her legs were about to break, it was really worth it. Chapter 275. In the office of the president of the pleasure group, there was a mountain of documents on the desk. It was the amount that Ling Han had to deal with today. Compared to usual, it was less than half of what he usually did, so he couldn't concentrate today. Xiaomu knocked on the door and walked in with a white bag in her hand. She took a deep breath. President Ling, the test results are out. This is the sealed bag. It was sealed on both ends by the doctor who gave the results to the client. If the seal was broken, the hospital would have to pay a huge amount of compensation. Xiaomu left the office. Ling Han opened the sealed bag and took out the 2 test results. One was the amniocentesis sample compared to his. The other one was a comparison of Su Nianhua. The one in his hand was his. The amniocentesis confirmed the result. The fetus in the womb is not related by blood. As for Su Nianhua's report, it said the probability of the fetus in her womb being directly related to her by blood is 97%. With a loud crash, the pile of documents in front of the desk fell to the floor along with the office supplies, making a loud crashing sound that reverberated in the empty office. Ling Han's eyes were red, and his fingers couldn't help but tremble as he held the test results. She had really lied to him. She had lied to him so confidently. She had acted so well for such a long time. She had acted so well. In the villa of Jinjiang Park, Yi Huanyan stood in the corridor of the backyard in a trance, staring at a pot of epiphyllum that hadn't bloomed yet. It was said that the epiphyllum was beautiful when it bloomed, but it was only for a moment. It was only when the night was fading and dawn was about to arrive that it was indescribably beautiful. "Miss Yi, it's time to eat." Lingling's voice sounded behind her, pulling her back from her thoughts. She was 7 months pregnant, so it was very difficult for her to walk. In the past 2 days, her legs and feet had started to swell. She was like a sponge that had been soaked in water. She looked round, but she was very weak inside. Not long after she sat down, she heard the sound of a car stopping in the yard. Lingling's eyes lit up. "Young master is back." She hurriedly got up and jogged to the door. Yi Huanyan frowned. She picked up her chopsticks and slowly put the food into her mouth, chewing mechanically. Now, she no longer had any expectations of whether Ling Han would come or not. He didn't trust her. Even if the child was proven to be his in the end and the knot in his heart was lifted. So what? A paternity test could lift the knot in his heart, but what could lift the knot in her heart? However, the person who came was not Ling Han. It was an old friend that he had not seen for a long time. When Sheng Enren appeared in the villa's living room in a bright and sexy European-style leather dress and exquisite makeup, Yi Huanyan's eyes flashed a trace of amazement. This trace of astonishment quickly turned into displeasure. She frowned. "Why are you here again?" Sheng Enren seemed to be in a good mood. He sat down on the sofa, played with the Gucci sunglasses in his hand, and looked around casually. "I haven't been here in so long. Your renovations are pretty good." Yi Huanyan didn't want to talk to her much. He frowned and called Lingling. Lingling called the community security. "Call the security?" Sheng Enren laughed. "What qualifications do you have to call the security? Do you still think you're the hostess of this house? I'm not. Are you?" "I'm not for the time being, but I will be soon." "And you, half an hour ago, were no longer." "What do you mean?" A trace of sullen anger appeared in Yi Huanyan's eyes. Blindly giving in seemed to only encourage Sheng Enren's arrogance. She hadn't given up on Ling Han yet. She didn't recognize her position. The person who married Ling Han was her. Did this woman have any idea in her heart? The results of the paternity test have come out. The child in your belly is not Ling Han's at all. Sheng Enren raised his red lips and showed a smug smile. "So, you're not welcome here in the future. For the sake of your pregnancy, I won't do it. You can go by yourself. You can go with dignity, right?" "What did you say?" Yi Huanyan stared at her and almost laughed out loud. "This is too funny. Sheng Enren, do you think I'll believe you and leave here by yourself just because you're spouting nonsense?" Sheng Enren sneered. "You're really thick-skinned. Ling Han isn't willing to do this kind of thing that bullies women, so I'll do it. Do you have to wait for Ling Han to come before you're willing to pack up and scram? Ling Han asked you to come? Impossible." "What's impossible?" Sheng Enren stood up. I said, you can scram now. Impossible. Yi Huanyan gripped the corner of the table with a determined expression. Qiao Mu hurried in from outside and looked at Sheng Anren with a frown. She lowered her voice and said, Miss Sheng, you shouldn't have come. Qiao Mu, quickly get rid of her. Yi Huanyan stood up and shouted in the direction of the living room. This woman is crazy. She actually lied to me and said that my child isn't Ling Han's and asked me to scram. Qiao Mu's expression froze and her frown deepened. Secretary Yi, listen to me. Where's Ling Han? Director Ling ordered me to come over and help you pack your luggage. Just as she finished speaking, Yi Huanyan's expression abruptly changed, and she looked at Qiao Mu in a daze. What did you say? Qiao Mu couldn't bear it and opened her mouth several times, but she couldn't say anything. Sheng Anren's sneer came from beside her. Yi Huanyan, you still don't believe me? I said that it was Ling Han who asked you to leave. If it weren't for me, he wouldn't acknowledge you and the child in your belly. Yi Huanyan stared blankly at Qiao Mu, trying to find a trace of rebuttal to Sheng Anren's words from her face. However, Qiao Mu just looked at her with pity, her eyes filled with sympathy. It was like something left in her heart had been sucked out, and she couldn't stand straight. Her entire body stiffened, and she felt like her head was filled with buzzing noises. Even breathing was very difficult. After a long time, she muttered, You lied to me. Sheng Anren creased her brows and pretended to walk toward her. Are you done yet? I told you to leave, so leave. What are you hanging around here for? Qiao Mu grabbed her arm and shook her head warningly. She said in a low voice, Anren, that's enough. Yi Huanyan held onto the corner of the table and walked toward Qiao Mu like she was possessed. Qiao Mu, where's Ling Han? Where is he? I want to see him. Qiao Mu frowned. Director Ling has a meeting this afternoon, so he's rather busy. Secretary Yi, have the servants help you pack your luggage. Stay in a hotel for now. Hotel? Yi Huanyan suddenly started laughing, and her laughter became even more deranged. Ha ha ha, you want me to stay in a hotel? On what basis? Sheng Anren couldn't hold back anymore and flung Qiao Mu's hand away. She grabbed Yi Huanyan and roughly dragged her toward the door. She mercilessly said, Yi Huanyan, who are you pretending to be crazy for? Ling Han isn't here, and he doesn't want to see you. Do you understand? Yi Huanyan staggered from her tugging and fell onto the carpet near the entrance. However, she tightly hugged a table leg and refused to let go no matter what. Sheng Anren's strength was limited, so she was panting after tugging for a while. Moreover, Qiao Mu was blocking her from behind and separating her from Yi Huanyan, so she could only angrily glare at Yi Huanyan. Chapter 276. Sheng Anren regained her senses and stared at Yi Huanyan. She said sarcastically, How can you be so thick-skinned? You're the chief secretary of a large company, after all. The sound of a car stopping in the courtyard stunned the people in the room, who had fallen into chaos. The person Yi Huanyan was thinking about walked steadily through the courtyard and into the entrance. His tall figure blocked the sunlight behind him. Under the light, his entire body was shrouded in a faint halo. Yi Huanyan crawled on the ground, her face pale. When she looked up at him, the light in her eyes was the last bit of expectation she had for him. Han, you're back. She gritted her teeth and forced herself to ask him. They came to our house and asked me to leave. Tell me, this isn't your idea. Ling Han stood at the entrance. His tall figure was as immovable as a towering mountain. His cold gaze swept over Sheng Anren, but in the end, it didn't fall on her. It was as if he was talking to the air. His cold tone made people feel as if they were in an ice cellar. Yi Huanyan, letting you leave here in one piece is the greatest tolerance I can give you. He hated lies the most in his life, and he saw the most lies and deceit in Yi Huanyan. It exhausted all his patience. Yi Huanyan couldn't believe what she had heard. She desperately told herself that she had heard wrongly. It wasn't like that. Get out of here before I change my mind. Ling Han's voice was like a heavy hammer, hammering heavily on Yi Huanyan's heart, making a buzzing sound. Why? She looked at him in disbelief. She supported herself with her arms and forced herself to get closer to Ling Han. She grabbed Ling Han's trousers and muttered, "Why? I'm married to you. I'm pregnant with our baby." Ling Han only felt that there was a breath of air in his chest. It was already difficult to suppress, but she was still testing his patience time and time again. Hearing such words, the anger in his heart could no longer be suppressed. "Yi Huanyan, when are you going to stop acting?" He leaned over and lifted Yi Huanyan from the ground. He grabbed her collar and slammed her against the wall of the entrance. He grabbed her neck with one hand and roared, "Are you going to tell me that you didn't do anything with Sun Yanhua, that the child is mine, and that he will inherit his grandmother's inheritance when he is born? How long are you going to lie to me? Or have you been lying for so long that you can't even tell what's true and what's false?" Yi Huanyan felt her blood rush to the top of her head, and she couldn't breathe from being choked. She could still hear him roaring at first, but later on, she could only hear a buzzing sound in her ears, and her face was drained of color. Yi Huanyan's face was completely drained of blood. Her eyelids lifted, and her eyes rolled back. Xiao Mu hastily said, "Director Ling, quickly let go. You can't choke her anymore. The child in her stomach isn't Sun Yanhua's." Sheng Anren's face instantly paled when he heard this, and he stared at Xiao Mu in panic. Ling Han loosened his grip, and Yi Huanyan instantly slid down the wall to the ground. Lingling, who had been anxious but didn't dare to go forward, quickly came over to support her and help her breathe. "What did you say?" Ling Han looked at Xiao Mu. Xiao Mu's expression froze. "What I mean is, there's a 1 in 10,000 chance that the DNA test result is inaccurate. Maybe it's wrong." Ling Han's expression recovered its previous gloom. What were the chances of a 1 in 10,000 chance falling on them? Moreover, Sun Yanhua's DNA test was there, so how could both tests be wrong? He clenched his fists and glanced at Yi Huanyan. He stepped over one of her legs and said with his back facing her, "Scram. I never want to see you again." Xiao Mu was worried that something would happen to Yi Huanyan if she stayed here, so she hastily walked up and helped her up. She helped her out the door and only said after they were far away, "Lingling, I'll take Secretary Yi to the hotel first. You just need to pack her luggage, a change of clothes, and the things she usually uses. Carry Director Ling on your back. I'll come and get them when I'm free." Lingling quickly nodded, and her eyes reddened. How can it be like this? Miss Yi is sincere to young master. Did you make a mistake somewhere? A complicated expression flashed through Xiao Mu's eyes. She pulled open the car door and helped the muddle-headed Yi Huanyan inside. After closing the car door, she hesitated for a few seconds before looking back at the villa. In the end, she steeled her heart and turned the car around, driving toward the west gate of Jinjiang Court. Inside the villa, Lingling returned to her room and carefully avoided Ling Han and Sheng Anren as she walked toward her own room. Seeing that only Ling Han and her were left in the room, Sheng Anren was secretly delighted. However, she learned to be smarter and did not show it on her face. She walked behind Ling Han and said softly, "Han, Yi Huanyan, this woman doesn't know what's good for her. She doesn't cherish you even though you treat her so well. If you treat me half as well as you treat her, I'll be perfectly satisfied. How could she be with another man?" "Who told you to come here?" Ling Han turned around to face her. His face was cold and stern, without any warmth. Sheng Anren shuddered for no reason and said cautiously, "I was just passing by, so I came to take a look." "Passing by?" Ling Han sneered, his eyes suddenly darkening. Jinjiang Court is half of Lanjiang City away from Fujin Court. How could you pass by? Sheng Anren's expression froze, and she looked at Ling Han apprehensively. Seeing that although his face was gloomy, he didn't show any signs of anger, she was slightly relieved. She carefully probed, "I'm afraid that you will feel uncomfortable if you stay here. Do you want to go out for a walk? I know a private clubhouse with a pretty good environment." Ling Han's heart was in a mess. He looked around and saw Yi Huanyan's lovey-dovey figure in this room. He could not stay here a moment longer. Let's go. His tone was a bit tired. After sending Yi Huanyan to the hotel, Qiao Mu drove away. She originally wanted to give Yi Huanyan a few words, but when she saw her sitting on the sofa with unfocused eyes, she swallowed back the words she was about to say. She took out her wallet from her pocket and put all the cash in it on the table beside her. She said softly, "Secretary Yi, if you're hungry, call the hotel. I'll come to see you tomorrow and bring your things back." She was like a soulless rag doll, not moving at all. Her eyes were empty and unfocused, unable to focus. It was unknown how much of Qiao Mu's words she heard. Qiao Mu sighed. She could not bear to continue watching, so she hurriedly turned to leave. Her footsteps were panicked. Not long after Qiao Mu left, Yi Huanyan turned to look at the stack of cash on the coffee table beside her. She tugged at the corner of her mouth, revealing a smile that was uglier than crying. She wanted to see if she could still smile. The muscles on the face should not have much connection to the heart, right? She thought so. But why did it not listen to her? The corner of her mouth seemed to have frozen, and she could not move no matter what. Chapter 277. At Lanjiang City International Airport, Ji Xiaoya stood beside the silver-haired man at the 6th baggage carousel, with a radiant smile on her face. The silver suitcase had already passed under her nose twice, but she turned a blind eye to it and continued to chat with the silver-haired man. Then, the person who looked like an assistant beside the silver-haired man took 2 black suitcases from the carousel and pulled them towards the silver-haired man. "I should go." Ji Xiaoya's expression froze, and her eyes were filled with unconcealable disappointment. She mumbled, "Oh, you're leaving." The silver-haired man nodded politely and gave her a faint smile. It was a very pleasant experience to meet Miss Ji. Ji Xiaoya lowered her head, and her hands nervously fiddled with the buttons of her windbreaker. She was speechless for a long time. She waited until the silver-haired man said goodbye to her and was about to leave. Then, she mustered her courage and looked up to ask, "Will we meet again in the future?" The man was slightly taken aback, and then the corners of his mouth curled up, revealing a meaningful smile. Yes, that smile was somewhat devilish and wanton, but it made a certain someone, who had been blinded by love, feel her blood boil. She didn't catch the hidden meaning at all. "When?" she asked. The silver-haired man didn't answer her. His deep gaze looked over her shoulder and landed on the carousel behind her. "Your suitcase is here." He knew that it was her suitcase. He had long known that it was just an excuse for her to dawdle here and wait for her luggage, but he didn't point it out until he was about to leave. What did he mean? Ji Xiaoya's thoughts were exposed. She felt her cheeks burning, and her mind was in a mess. She watched as the silver-haired man turned to leave. Her throat seemed to be blocked by something, and she couldn't say a word. She walked out of the airport in a daze and took a taxi back to her apartment. On the way back, she turned on her phone and found that there were more than 10 missed calls. When Ji Xiaoya saw the words pleasure, Qiao Mu, on the caller ID, she was slightly taken aback, and a trace of astonishment appeared in her eyes. She was not familiar with Qiao Mu when they were colleagues. Other than work-related matters, they barely had any contact. She always felt that Qiao Mu was very unsociable, so she was too lazy to interact with him, let alone now that she had resigned. However, when he saw that there were more than 10 calls, he was surprised. He thought that it might be something urgent, so he called back. "Hello? Assistant Xiao?" The voice on the other end of the phone was very anxious. "Secretary Ji, did Secretary Yi contact you today?" These words were spoken quickly and anxiously, making Ji Xiaoya's heart skip a beat. When she returned to the apartment, it was already midnight. She got out of the car and hurriedly threw a $100 bill to the driver. While talking on the phone, she unloaded her suitcase and walked towards the apartment, looking very irritable. "What do you mean? What do you mean Yan Yan is missing? Isn't she pregnant? Shouldn't she be at Jinjiang Court? What did you say? Ling Han chased her out? A paternity test? Are you crazy? When did she disappear? I think you're all F***ing crazy. If anything happens to Yen Yen, let Ling Han regret it. Just as she was talking on the phone, she saw a familiar figure in the garden downstairs. If Ji Xiaoya hadn't squatted down to move the luggage, she would not have seen the person sitting under the arch of the slide. Her entire body stiffened, and she hung up the phone without a second thought. She threw down her luggage and hurriedly ran towards the garden. Yi Huanyan sat on the sand with her hair tied up behind her head, and the hair in front of her forehead was a bit messy from the evening wind. She touched her bulging belly and hid under the arch, her eyes full of emptiness. Seeing Ji Xiaoya look at her, she slowly raised her head, but her eyes were a bit unfocused, and her voice was as thin as a mosquito's. Xiaoyu, you're back. Can I stay at your place for a while? Ji Xiaoya's eyes immediately reddened. No matter how much she wanted to say, her words were stuck in her throat and she couldn't say them. She could only hold in her breath and force back her tears. She sniffed hard and helped her up from the sand. Then she slowly walked towards the apartment building. She originally thought that Yi Huanyan would be unable to recover from the setback, but after settling her in the apartment, she told her to take a shower, and she did. When she told her where the things were, she nodded gently. Other than the lack of expression on her face, there didn't seem to be anything out of the ordinary. However, the more normal she was, the more panic Ji Xiaoya felt in her heart. On the other side, Qiao Mu called to urge her again. Did you find Secretary? Ji Xiaoya glanced at the bathroom and walked further away until she was certain that Yi Huanyan couldn't hear her. Then she grumbled, do you really care whether she's dead or alive? If Ling Han really cares about her, why didn't he call me himself? I'm just concerned as a colleague. Assistant Xiao, don't tell me this. We don't have much of a relationship with you, so it's enough to do what your boss wants you to do. Yen and I can't bear your concern. You and Ling Han are jackalls of the same tribe. Just tell Ling Han how miserable her life is right now and let him ask his conscience if she was eaten by a dog. Without waiting for Qiao Mu to speak, she angrily hung up and blacklisted Qiao Mu's number. Ling Han and his subordinates were all heartless, cruel, and heartless people. However, after hanging up the phone, she started to have doubts in her heart again. How could Yi Huanyan's child be Sun Yanhua's? What the hell is going on? Just as she was thinking, the sound of running water in the bathroom abruptly stopped. Yi Huanyan changed into a clean, loose nightgown and slowly walked out with her hands on her waist. Her wet hair was draped over her shoulders. Ji Xiaoya quickly walked forward. Your hair is so wet, why don't you dry it first? The hairdryer is on the coffee table. MHM. Yi Huanyan nodded obediently. Seeing her timid appearance, Ji Xiaoya was a bit annoyed. Yu, Xiaoyu, I'm hungry. Yi Huanyan suddenly looked up and interrupted her. She didn't want to hear anything and didn't want to answer anything. Ji Xiaoya was stunned. In the end, she had no choice but to swallow her belly full of words. She said in a muffled voice, go dry your hair. I'll cook noodles for you. There was still a roll of noodles and several eggs in the fridge. Seeing Yi Huanyan's fragile appearance, Ji Xiaoya simply made some egg soup. She cracked all 5 eggs, and a bowl of steaming yellow egg noodles was placed on the table in front of Yi Huanyan. Eat first and rest well afterward. I'll go to the supermarket tomorrow morning. I don't have any ingredients at home, so I'll take 2 days off to stay with you. No need. Yi Huanyan blew on the noodles and whispered, you go to work and I'll stay at home. I'll call you if something happens. You don't have to stay with me. Are you sure? Ji Xiaoya frowned. MHM. Yi Huanyan took a sip of the noodles and chewed slowly before swallowing. She looked up at Ji Xiaoya. Her eyes moved slightly and her voice was very gentle. Xiaoyu, you don't have to worry about me. I have a baby. Chapter 278. Late at night, the evening wind in Lanjiang City at the end of June was unbearably hot. Inside the black car, Qiao Mu's self-reproachful gaze passed through the window and looked in the direction of the 10th floor of the single apartment building. When the dim yellow lights suddenly went out, a heavy sigh sounded in the car. Xiao Mu knew that from the moment he helped Sheng Anren change the paternity test report, everything was irreparable. He could let himself be consigned to eternal damnation, but even now, he still wanted to protect Sheng Anren's safety. As for all the sins, let him bear them. After Yi Huanyan moved into Ji Xiaoya's house, Sheng Anren and Ling Han once again appeared on the hot search headlines of major social media platforms, and the rumors of their impending marriage intensified. Some people said that the new movie was a hype, while others said that good things were strewn with setbacks. It was very common for a female celebrity to marry into a wealthy family in the entertainment industry, and Ling Han was a national husband who changed girlfriends as easily as changing clothes. Despite several twists and turns in his relationship with Sheng Anren for more than a year, they were still together, which made many netizens think that perhaps it was true love. Yi Huanyan watched the news of Sheng Anren holding Ling Han's arm and attending the movie opening ceremony on TV. Her eyes were dim, but there was no sadness or joy. The doorbell rang for a long time before she came back to her senses. She was stunned for a moment before she got up to open the door. Gu Lu stood at the door with a hesitant expression. Yi Huanyan pursed her lips and said indifferently, "Assistant Gu, you're here." Gu Lu came to find her the day after she moved here. He originally wanted to take her away, but she refused. Probably because of Gu Xinyan's request, he didn't dare to slack off. So he came to see her regularly every day and brought some supplements. Every 3 days, he also brought a private doctor to check on her. Yi Huanyan found it troublesome and declined several times, but he turned a deaf ear to it. A mixed-blood female doctor in a professional suit, Grace, followed behind Gu Lu. She had long brown hair, deep eyes, and spoke very gently. She spoke in authentic Chinese. Gu Lu said that she was the Gu family's private doctor and had recently received Gu Xinyan's order to work in China. "Miss Yi, it's time for a checkup today." Yi Huanyan took a deep breath, nodded, and stepped aside. "Assistant Gu, it's better if you don't come here in the future. You didn't tell Big Brother, did you?" Gu Lu looked embarrassed. He looked back and nervously took a step back. "Miss, why don't you explain to young master personally?" Yi Huanyan was stunned for a few seconds before she saw a tall figure walk out from the shadows of the corridor. He stood in the doorway with a cold aura around him. There was a hint of anger in his eyes as he sized her up without blinking. "Yan Gu Lu is my man. Do you think he will help you hide it from me?" Gu Xinian had returned to Lanjiang City a week ago, and Yi Huanyan Gu Lu, who had been taking care of Yi Huanyan, had already told him about it. He didn't come to see Yi Huanyan because he had confirmed that she was safe and sound, so he went to do other things first. Yi Huanyan felt guilty under Gu Xinian's gaze. She called out softly, "Brother, when did you come back?" "I came back a long time ago." Gu Xinian glanced at her and strode into the apartment. Gu Xinian pulled out a chair for him to sit on. Grace had already set up all kinds of equipment in the bedroom and stood at the door, waiting for Gu Xinian's instructions. "Let's do a checkup first." Yi Huanyan sighed in relief and went straight into the bedroom. She closed the door and went to do a checkup with Grace. "The child is a little underdeveloped. Miss Yi, you have to pay more attention to your diet and supplement it with dietary fiber. You can't always rely on drugs." After the checkup, Grace tidied up at the side, while Yi Huanyan slowly buttoned up her clothes. She seriously remembered Grace's words in her mind. After Grace went out to tell Gu Xinian about Yi Huanyan's physical condition, she was still dawdling in the bedroom. Gu Lu glanced at the bedroom door and understood. "Grace, let's go. I'll send you back first." Gu Xinian was the only one left in the apartment. "Do you plan to stay in the bedroom for the rest of your life?" Gu Xinian's voice was a little cold, but there was no lack of concern and love for her. Yi Huanyan was 10 years younger than him. She was the little sister he had looked forward to for a long time when he was young. When he heard that his mother was pregnant at the age of 10, he hoped that it would be a girl. When the tests revealed that it was a girl, he was even happier for a long time. When he heard that his mother had given birth in China across the ocean, He even made a fuss and rushed over with his father. What he received was news that the little miss of the Gu family had gone missing. For the past 20 years, his little sister's disappearance had been a haze over the heads of the entire family. Although she was not by their side, she was a shadow that the entire Gu family yearned for day and night. In order to make up for the guilt in their hearts, the Gu family even adopted a girl who was born in the same year as Yi Huanyan and raised her at home. She used the name that originally belonged to Yi Huanyan. Gu Sinian was a little displeased at the thought of his little sister at home. He frowned. At this time, Yi Huanyan had already pushed open the bedroom door and walked out carefully. She said softly, "Brother, I'm actually not that bad. My body is fine, and the baby is fine too. When the baby is born, I'll go home with you. Why don't you go now?" Gu Lu had told Yi Huanyan more than once that he could take her back now. She had rejected him. Yi Huanyan pursed her lips and did not speak, but her eyes betrayed her. Gu Sinian frowned and said, "You're still thinking about him?" "No," Yi Huanyan denied. "I just want to wait until the baby is born and prove to him that this child is his and not someone else's. I can be wronged, but my child can't." Hearing this, Gu Sinian was even more displeased. "You don't need to prove anything to him. In the eyes of the Gu family, Ling Han is just an ant. You are the second miss of the Gu family. You can do whatever you want. You don't need to explain yourself to anyone." "Don't I need to explain myself to my child?" Yi Huanyan's words made Gu Sinian's eyes flash with a trace of astonishment. Yi Huanyan supported her waist and slowly walked in front of Gu Sinian. "Brother, I don't need to explain myself to anyone, including Ling Han. But I'm afraid that one day my child will ask me who his father is. I know better than anyone else. Why should I let my child suffer this kind of injustice?" Gu Sinian frowned and looked at Yi Huanyan. In the end, he took her hand and pulled her to sit beside him. He sighed and said, "You can do whatever you want. Mom and Dad were very happy when they heard that you were found. Mom wanted to come too, but you're already in a mess here, so she didn't want to add to the trouble. They're waiting for you to go back." Gu Sinian felt his scalp go numb at the thought of his mother's personality. Fortunately, he didn't bring her here. Otherwise, he couldn't be sure what she would have done. As they were talking, the sound of a key being inserted into the lock rang out. The axle of the door creaked and turned. Ji Xiaoya's voice followed. "Yen Yen, let's go out for dinner tonight." Chapter 279. Ji Xiaoya's voice came to an abrupt halt as she stared at Gu Sinian in shock. When Yi Huanyan saw this, she assumed that Gu Sinian's sudden appearance had frightened Ji Xiaoya, so she hurriedly stood up and introduced him. "Xiaoyu, this is my older brother, Gu Sinian. He just returned to the country and came to visit me." "Your older brother?" Ji Xiaoya continued to stare in disbelief. He was actually Yi Huanyan's older brother? When did you have such an older brother? "You." Her mind couldn't wrap around it for a moment as she stared blankly at Yi Huanyan. "It's getting late. I still have some matters to attend to, so I'll take my leave first." Gu Sinian stood up and smiled at Ji Xiaoya. He still had that devilish look on his face. When he walked past her, he lowered his voice and said, "I told you we'll meet again." Even after the door closed behind her, Ji Xiaoya was still standing in the same spot with a dazed look on her face. Yi Huanyan was a little puzzled. She supported her waist as she walked over to her side and asked in confusion, "Xiaoyu, although it's very strange that I suddenly have an older brother, you don't have to look like this, right?" Ji Xiaoya stared blankly at her. "This older brother is your older cousin? Your older cousin?" "My biological older brother." After hearing this, Ji Xiaoya swallowed a mouthful of saliva. "Yen Yen, how do you think I usually treat you?" "Very well." As they spoke, Ji Xiaoya helped her sit down on the sofa. She poured her a glass of water from the kettle and stuffed it into her hands. "Yen Yen, who are you with? We've known each other for almost 8 years now. What do you think of me?" Yi Huanyan took the cup and stared at her suspiciously. "Very good. What are you doing?" Yi Huanyan was a little confused. She didn't know why Ji Xiaoya suddenly asked her these questions in such a serious manner. However, she was indeed thirsty, so she lowered her head to drink water. Anyway, Ji Xiaoya was always so fussy. Who knew what she would ask of him this time? Will you think of me being your sister-in-law? PFFF. As soon as she finished speaking, Yi Huanyan spat her saliva on the coffee table. Ji Xiaoya was also affected. She hurriedly dodged and kicked over the kettle beside her. With a bang, the kettle exploded, and the scene was instantly a mess. Yi Huanyan hurriedly got up to get a mop to clean up the house, but Ji Xiaoya stopped her. Don't move. Yan, you haven't answered my question yet. Yi Huanyan was stunned. You're kidding, right? Why would I be kidding? Ji Xiaoya took a deep breath. Her eyes were a little disappointed. Do you also think that what I said is nonsense? Yi Huanyan hurriedly explained. No, that's not what I meant. My brother. I really didn't think of the two of you together. This is the first time you've met. Don't tell me that it's love at first sight. That's too ridiculous. It's not the first time we've met. Ji Xiaoya raised her head. Her eyes were sparkling. I met him on the plane. Don't you think it's fate? She ignored the mess on the floor and forced Yi Huanyan to tell her about her encounter with Gu Xinian. She even repeated the conversation between the two of them on the plane word for word. In the end, she looked at Yi Huanyan expectantly. Yan, look, I chatted with him for so long. We got along very well. Really? Yi Huanyan touched her stomach and said doubtfully, Why do I feel like my brother didn't react at all on the way here? In Ji Xiaoya's eyes, helping her get a bottle of water, nodding his head in agreement, and even showing a smile seemed like a big hint from Gu Xinian to her. In Yi Huanyan's eyes, Ji Xiaoya was simply love-struck again. Seeing Ji Xiaoya's expectant look, Yi Huanyan couldn't bear to discourage her, so she asked tentatively, Don't you mind? My brother is 8 years older than you. I like him even if he's 18 years older. I'm not talking about that. Yi Huanyan hesitated for a moment. I'm saying, have you ever thought that my brother might be married? Even if he isn't, he might already have a girlfriend. Wasn't the famous model I met at Fengshan Gu Xinian's ex-girlfriend? She had such a flirtatious face and a cold temperament when she didn't speak. She didn't have the same style as the sweet and quick-witted Ji Xiaoya, right? Hearing this, Ji Xiaoya was slightly taken aback. You're saying that he has a girlfriend? Married? No, I'm saying hypothetically. I haven't asked him. In fact, I just met him not long ago. Then help me ask. Huh? Yes, help me ask. If he has a girlfriend or is married, I'll give up. If he doesn't, then help me. Yi Huanyan stared at Ji Xiaoya in astonishment. She was completely convinced that Ji Xiaoya was asking for her help as a matter of course, and that she had already calculated all kinds of plans rationally. However, after being reminded by Ji Xiaoya, Yi Huanyan was suddenly a little curious about Gu Xinian. They had chatted a few times before, but they had only talked about their parents' current situation. She looked at the family photo and saw that there was a girl in her mid-20s. The photo was taken 2 years ago, and she was standing next to Gu Xinian. The two of them looked very compatible. Was she his sister-in-law? If so, she seemed to be about the same age as Ji Xiaoya. In the film and television city of Lanjiang City, the night play is in full swing. Sheng Enren's new play is a spy film in the period of the Republic of China. She is, of course, the first female lead, wearing a valiant military uniform. After waiting for the double to finish the fighting play, she makes a gesture of turning her head in front of the camera, and the whole play is over. Cut. Good job, Anren. That's all for today. Everyone has worked hard. Let's call it a day. After filming, the staff next to her handed a small fan to Sheng Anren. It was unbearably hot. She waved her hand impatiently to block the staff and walked straight to her nanny van. As she walked, she lowered her voice and asked, Did you pick her up? Her agent nodded quickly. Yes, but she doesn't look normal. She's a little manic. I persuaded her in every way possible and said that I would introduce her to the second female lead in a script. That's why she came. Hearing this, Sheng Anren sneered. She's just the second female lead in a third-rate script. She's willing to bow her head to someone like me, whom she hates to the core. It seems that she's suffered a lot during this period. Isn't that so? Boss Ju of that bar is really not an easy person to serve. You'll know when you see her. She's too thin. Now Boss Ju is tired of playing with her and kicked her out. Her life is very bad. While talking, they were almost in front of the nanny van. The agent consciously opened the door and only let Sheng Anren get in the car. He stood at the door and kept watch. In the car across the table, a woman whose cheekbones protruded sat in the shadow. If one didn't look carefully, one wouldn't recognize that she was the sweet female streamer, In Guagua, who had become popular overnight. At this moment, In Guagua looked at Sheng Anren. All the jealousy and hatred in the past were forgotten. Sister Anren, I was wrong before. I didn't expect you to be willing to introduce a script to me. I really don't know how to thank you. Thank you? Sheng Anren smiled. That's not necessary. I'm just helping someone clean up the mess. I'm also accumulating merit for Ling Han and his child. Chapter 280. A bank card was pushed to In Guagua on the table. Here's 500,000 yuan. Pay off your debt and live a good life in the future. Film if you have any shows. Relax. No one will find trouble with you in the future. Sister Anren, what do you mean? In Guagua's face was slightly stiff. She stared at Sheng Anren in confusion. Sheng Anren frowned. Do you think being banned can make your life like this? Ling Han is not that free, so don't hate him. He just gave you a small punishment. Except for the fact that you can't get any shows. All the problems you encountered have nothing to do with Ling Han. In Guagua's face was completely stiff. What did you say? During the period when she was banned, she just couldn't get any shows. She was not the one who breached the contract. On the contrary, the directors who had signed with her had to compensate her. Therefore, she actually received a lot of liquidated damages, which was enough for her to do some small business without worrying about food and clothing. However, those directors who had signed with her fought a lawsuit with her. After a while, she didn't get any money in her hands. All her savings were spent on the lawsuit. She was at the end of her rope. Later, a friend introduced her to the second uncle of the director of the Lanjiang City TV station. He was an old man, but he treated her well. She was willing to be his mistress. Relying on his relationship, she could also get some night shows. Although they were not popular, they made money. However, she didn't know who reported it to his wife. She was beaten until her head was bruised and bleeding. She was hospitalized for half a month before she recovered. After that, she met Boss Ju of the bar. That was the biggest nightmare of her life. I didn't expect her to be so ruthless. The casual words made In Guagua's face turn livid. It's her? I have no enmity with her. How could she do this to me? I haven't even seen her a few times. I haven't seen her that many times. I only know that not long after she banned you, Ling Han married her. Now she's almost 7 months pregnant. The dust has settled, and she's firmly in the position of Mrs. Ling. None of US can compete with her, so she stopped. Sheng Anren looked at In Guagua's face. Seeing that she was already furious, he added fuel to the fire and said, She is very clever. I admit defeat. I heard that the old lady of the Ling family left all her property to the child in her belly before she passed away. She got everything she wanted. In this battle, both of us are losers. Loser. In Guagua gnashed her teeth and looked at Sheng Anren. I didn't compete with her at all. She even treated me like this. How can a person like her get everything? Don't think about it. You can't beat her. Sheng Anren's eyes fell on the bank card. Take the money and settle your heart. Don't hate Ling Han. When you were together, he was not bad to you. If you want to blame someone, blame that woman for being too skillful and getting pregnant. Yin Guogwa sneered. Really? If it weren't for this child, the one who married Ling Han would probably be you. Sheng Anren's eyes trembled, and he was stunned. Yin Guogwa put away the bank card on the table. I'll take the money. I won't take it for nothing. I'll return you a big favor. After saying this, she opened the car door and walked away into the night. Sheng Anren's heart skipped a beat, and he felt a little flustered for no reason. She knew very well what Yin Guogwa was going to do. This was also her goal. However, she really felt that this goal was about to be achieved, so she started to panic again. She felt for her phone and found Ling Han's number. After hesitating for a while, she scrolled down and finally found Xiao Mu's name. She hesitated and dialed. Are you free? I am not in a good mood. Come out for a drink. After Grace finished giving Yi Huanyan a physical examination, she said with a smile, You've been doing well recently. The child is very healthy. You can't always be cooped up at home every day. You have to exercise and go out for a walk. Otherwise, giving birth is a strenuous job. When the time comes, it will be a bit troublesome for you to recover from the cesarean section. Yi Huanyan smiled very gently. Thank you, Grace. Grace shook her head. You're welcome. Xin Yan and I have been friends for so many years. Ever since Xiao Qi left, I could only see his little face in front of you. Xiao Qi? Yi Huanyan was slightly taken aback. Xiao Qi is? Hearing this, a trace of astonishment flashed through Grace's eyes. She seemed to be very surprised that Yi Huanyan didn't know about this. However, on second thought, she felt that it was normal. Xin Yan might not have mentioned to you that Xiao Qi is his wife. My brother's married. Yi Huanyan asked in a daze. He didn't mention this to me. Do I have a sister-in-law? Her name is Xiao Qi? Where is she now? Grace's eyes suddenly revealed a hint of sadness. 3 years ago, Xiao Qi passed away. Hearing this news, Yi Huanyan's heart suddenly tightened. Passed away? It's also because of this that Xin Yan has a head of white hair now. After Xiao Qi left, he locked himself in the house for half a month without eating or drinking. When he came out, he looked like this now. From Grace, Yi Huanyan found out that Gu Xinian was a completely different person from before. Oh right, don't take the initiative to mention Xiao Qi in front of your brother. He won't be able to hear this and will definitely get angry. Grace suddenly remembered Gu Xinian's manic reaction when others mentioned Xiao Qi. Her whole body trembled. She raised her wrist to look at the time and estimated that Gu Xinian was coming. She quickly packed her things and smiled. I'll be leaving first. This matter is in the past, so don't think about it. Yi Huanyan also understood the meaning behind Grace's few words. Xiao Qi's death was a huge blow to Gu Xinian. He still couldn't get over it, and it wasn't just because of his love for this woman. It was hard to guess what the story behind it was. As soon as Grace left, Gu Xinian arrived at the entrance of the apartment. Ji Xiaoya followed behind him. Yi Huanyan sat on the sofa and looked up at the two of them walking in one after another. She was surprised and asked, Why did you two come together? Gu Xinian walked towards her. We met downstairs. Xiao Yu said that she recently got off work early in the afternoon. Off work. Yi Huanyan looked at Ji Xiaoya suspiciously. She hadn't had a rest for a week. Fengshang was a place that treated women like men. She was so busy that she didn't even have a break on Saturday and Sunday. Why would she get off work in the afternoon? Ji Xiaoya was scared by her stare and said anxiously, In that case, we won't be cooking at home tonight. We'll go out to eat. There's a new Chinese restaurant that opened. I heard that the food is very good. Yan, do you want to see it? Yi Huanyan blinked with a sly look on her face. Is it because I'm not good at it, or, brother, what do you think? Chapter 281. During dinner, Ji Xiaoya kept putting food in Gu Xinian's bowl. Even Yi Huanyan couldn't stand her attentive attitude. Yi Huanyan didn't believe that Gu Xinian couldn't tell that Ji Xiaoya was interested in him. On the way, Ji Xiaoya went to the restroom. Gu Xinian called the waitress over to settle the bill. The waitress looked like she was in her early 20s. She was probably a university student working part-time at a nearby university. After exchanging a few words with Gu Xinian, her face turned red. When she left, she took out a pen from her breast pocket and wrote a number on a napkin. After the waitress left, Yi Huanyan couldn't help but sigh. Gu Xinian raised his eyebrows. "What's wrong, brother? Do you have a lot of women around you?" she asked bluntly. After all, she had worked in the entertainment industry for a few years, so she had some experience in judging people. As long as a golden bachelor like Gu Xinian wanted to, there would definitely be a lot of women around him. He didn't seem to have any scruples as he smiled and said, "Quite a lot." Seeing that he was so calm, Yi Huanyan decided to ask whatever came to her mind. That waitress just now was quite good-looking, but compared to that supermodel from the other day, she didn't seem to be on the same level. "Are you really interested in her and will contact her in the future, or are you just teasing her?" Yen, do you have to talk to me about my private life? I'm afraid you won't be able to accept it if I really tell you." Yi Huanyan muttered to herself for a while before she shook her head. "Forget it. Let's change the question. You and shall you? She's very cute." These 4 simple words made Yi Huanyan feel a little uncomfortable, but when she thought about how she was her best friend, she couldn't help but ask. "You can take it that she's cute. Do you like her?" Gu Xinian furrowed his brows. Yen, do you want me to like her? She likes you a lot." "I know." Gu Xinian looked indifferent. "But my feelings for her aren't much more than the feelings you had for the model and that waitress just now. But your attitude towards her is clearly different from how you treat others." Yi Huanyan decided to get to the bottom of it. "Isn't there a possibility? Shall you replace the person in your heart?" Gu Xinian's face darkened and his tone became a little colder. Yi Huanyan knew she had misspoken. She was stunned for a few seconds before she sighed. "Brother, I'm sorry." Gu Xinian's face was filled with endless gloom. He furrowed his brows for a while before he gradually calmed down. "No one can replace her, and there's no need for anyone to replace her. Yen, you think I treat Ji Xiaoya differently because she's your friend and takes care of you. That's all. I can treat her like a little sister because of you." Yi Huanyan looked at Gu Xinian. From his cold expression, she was certain that Ji Xiaoya didn't stand a chance. At the very least, she didn't have a chance right now. Deep down, she knew what Gu Xinian meant when he said she shouldn't pry too much into his private life. He probably meant that in his eyes, there were only 2 kinds of women, those who could sleep with him and those who couldn't. She was afraid that no woman could accept such a concept. Suddenly, she received a text message on her phone. Yen, I have something to do at the company. I'll be heading back first." Yi Huanyan was slightly stunned. A bad idea popped into her mind. She instinctively looked at the door of the private room. The door was slightly ajar, and there was a stream of figures outside. "Shall you left?" "I know." Gu Xinian slowly poured a cup of tea. He looked up at Yi Huanyan with an indifferent expression. "Isn't it good that she found out earlier? It'll save you the trouble of explaining things to her." Seeing his indifferent expression, Yi Huanyan was momentarily at a loss for words. "You think your brother is a heartless person, don't you?" Gu Xinian refilled her tea. "But do you feel safe letting such an innocent girl like her continue to interact with me?" Yi Huanyan frowned and said dejectedly, "Forget it. I don't care anymore. Since Xiaoyu knows what you mean, she won't pester you anymore. It's just that I'm afraid you won't be able to come to the apartment to look for me in the future. It's too awkward." "What's there to be awkward about? I'll go in the afternoon. She doesn't get off work until 6. Yi Huanyan looked at him in shock. She thought about all the recent events in her mind and finally understood everything. However, she had no choice but to pick up the teacup and angrily drink a large mouthful of water. These days, Ji Xiaoya had encountered all kinds of coincidences and solicitude. Gu Xinian clearly knew all about it, but he deliberately pretended not to see it. And this person was her brother, her biological brother. She even felt guilty towards Ji Xiaoye. As night fell, Gu Xinian sent Yi Huanyan to the apartment building. Before going upstairs, she stopped him and was very stubborn. Just go back. Don't let Xiaoyu see you. Don't hang around in front of her too much in the future. Gu Xinian raised his hand and patted her head. Okay, I know. I'm just worried about you. I'll watch you go upstairs before I leave. I won't go up, okay? Yi Huanyan finally gave up. After hearing the sound of keys opening the door and closing the door upstairs, Gu Xinian smiled slightly. He took out a lighter and a cigarette from his pocket and lowered his head to light it as he turned to walk to his car. He was wearing a black shirt and black pants. In the night, he looked very lonely. Since that lass had heard it, she should give up. He curled the corners of his mouth and smiled, but his eyes were full of loneliness. He leaned against the car door and finished smoking a cigarette. Just as he was about to get into the car, he suddenly saw a sapphire blue car in the front mirror. The license plate number was very familiar. A cold light flashed across his deep eyes. He quietly got into the car and drove out of the east gate. When he got onto the inner-city highway, he found that car following behind him. When you hold something in your hands, you don't know how to cherish it. But when you lose it, you can't forget it. No one understood Ling Han's sick mentality better than him. His foot stepped on the accelerator pedal, and the speed of the car was like a dragon gliding on the inner-city highway. After the car got off the inner-city highway, it was quickly submerged in the traffic flow and cleanly got rid of the blue car that was following closely behind. In the car, he clenched his fists and slammed them hard on the steering wheel. The rearview mirror reflected the person in the driver's seat. Ling Han's cold eyes were like a knife, emitting a cold glint. After Yi Huanyan left Jin Jiangcourt, she didn't contact Sun Yanhua. As far as he knew, Sun Yanhua wanted to see Yi Huanyan. Every time, it was Gu Xinian who stopped Sun Yanhua. In addition, the Gu Corporation repeatedly launched commercial attacks on the pleasure group. During this time, he couldn't divert his attention to other things. This Gu Xinian racked his brains to stop the child's biological father from visiting, and was so ruthless to the pleasure group. What was his relationship with Yi Huanyan? Thinking of his intimate actions towards Yi Huanyan just now, Ling Han only felt that there was a ball of fire in his chest that had nowhere to vent. He couldn't wait to rush forward and chop off his hand. Chapter 282. In the apartment. The white moonlight poured onto the windowsill. Yi Huanyan tossed and turned, unable to fall asleep. Ji Xiaoye was lying beside her, seemingly sleeping very soundly, as if she was not affected by Gu Xinian at all. The calmness was all on the surface, and the sadness was the real thing. Yi Huanyan touched her lower abdomen and looked at the moonlight on the windowsill in a daze. These days, seeing Ji Xiaoye beside her making a fuss, for love had more or less washed away her previous despair and collapse. The child in her belly was now growing healthily. Silently counting the days until the due date was already the greatest mental support for her. When people lost everything, they would feel despair and heartbreak. But when they really recognized reality and accepted the cruel fate, they began to cherish the few blessings that the world had given them. This child, Gu Xinian, and Ji Xiaoye were all the same. After that day, the apartment returned to its usual peace. Ji Xiaoye left early and returned late every day, and there was no more adjustment or rest. Probably to avoid accidentally bumping into Ji Xiaoye, Gu Xinian changed to eating lunch with her every day at noon, and then she would spend the whole afternoon alone. She went online to learn how to make scarves and small hats. Facing all kinds of beautiful warm-colored wool balls, she took them apart and beat them. A full set of scarves and hats had already begun to take shape. Every day after dinner, it was time for her to take a stroll. After leaving the neighborhood and crossing the road was the supermarket. She would buy some vegetables or snacks for tomorrow on the way back. Cars came and went at the zebra crossing. It was almost rush hour, so there were many people on the road. The people crossing the road were also in a hurry, but no one ran the red light. Yi Huanyan carried a grocery bag on her arm and wore flats. Being 7 months pregnant, the passers-by looked at her with more kindness and concern. A few young men next to her were probably students from the nearby Lanjiang University, and they deliberately separated the crowd to give her a spacious spot. She thanked him kindly and looked across the road, silently counting the seconds until the light turned red. Across the zebra crossing, a figure wearing a professional suit was dancing. From afar, one could tell that it was a woman. The people on the other side looked at each other, not knowing what was going on. Yi Huanyan was slightly stunned. She looked carefully, and when she saw the figure clearly, she covered her mouth in disbelief. She revealed a look of pleasant surprise and raised her hand to wave, indicating that she had seen her. When the countdown ended, the figure opposite her saw that the red light had passed and hurriedly walked towards her in her high heels. Her heavily made-up face was full of joy, and she ran while waving at her desperately, without caring about her image. Yi Huanyan's body was inconvenient. Even if she wanted to walk faster, there was nothing she could do. She could only smile as she watched the figure across from her walk through the crowd towards her. She fell behind the crowd on her side, leaving only her in the distance. The loud sound of an engine roared in her ears, and the sharp sound of brakes thundered on the road. It was dusk, and the light of the car made her subconsciously raise her arm to block her eyes. The empty shopping bag flew far away from her hand, and when the back of her head hit the ground, her rapidly contracting pupils reflected Gu Fengfeng's frightened expression of being stunned for a moment before she sped up and ran over. There was also the familiar face of the woman who had hit her with the car, Yin Guagua. There was a lot of noise in her ears, and the phone in the shopping bag kept ringing. Who was calling? Her eyelids gradually grew heavy, and the world was dark. Before she fainted, she could still clearly remember the woman in the driver's seat looking down at her from above. That crazy look on her face after she had taken her revenge. Her face was ferocious, like a demon from hell. She was furious, and her red eyes were full of curses for Yi Huanyan and the child in her belly. Her whole body trembled, and she repeatedly said, "Go to hell." When Ling Han arrived at the hospital's operating room, there was a strange face and a figure he couldn't be more familiar with at the door of the operating room. He coldly glanced at Su Nianhua, hiding the panic in his eyes that no one knew about. "How is she?" Su Nianhua looked at Ling Han and said angrily, "Didn't you leave her alone? What are you doing here?" Ling Han frowned and said coldly, "Legally, she is still my wife. I should ask you, Mr. Su, why are you here?" Su Nianhua gritted his teeth and stared at Ling Han. "I only hate myself for not being with Yen all the time. I didn't take her away as soon as I returned to China. That's why she suffered such inhumane treatment." Before Yi Huanyan fainted, the person who called her was Su Nianhua. These days, he called Yi Huanyan every day, hoping that she could forgive his reckless behavior, but she didn't answer a single call. The person who answered the phone was an unfamiliar woman, and the background was the constant noise of the ambulance. The woman named Gu Fengfeng on the phone said that she was Yi Huanyan's third sister. At this moment, she was standing at the door of the operating room, and the woman who sent Yi Huanyan to the hospital as soon as something happened. Gu Fengfeng looked at Ling Han and Su Nianhua. At first, she thought that the handsome man who came first was Yi Huanyan's husband. After a few words, she felt that he was very good, polite, and gentle, not like the scumbag that everyone talked about when he was still in prison. However, after a while, another one came. Did it mean that the one who came later was her husband? No matter which one it was, the two of them stood at the door of the operating room with swords drawn, and it made her feel very bad for Yi Huanyan. The door of the operating room slowly opened, and a doctor in a green surgical gown walked out. Who is the pregnant woman's family member? Su Nianhua's face stiffened, and he glared at Ling Han angrily, his eyes full of unwillingness. There are two options. The pregnant woman and the child need both, and the other option only protects the pregnant woman. The family member can choose one option and go sign it. We need both. Su Nianhua's tone was urgent. Of course, we need both. The doctor glanced at Su Nianhua and took a deep breath. Time is of the essence, so I won't talk nonsense with you. If we save the child, the mother will be in danger, and there will be many complications after the surgery. There is only a 30% chance that the child can be saved. If we give up on the child, the mother will recover well after the surgery. The pregnant woman is still young, and she can have another child in the future. Su Nianhua's face stiffened, and he hesitated. Complications? What complications? Can she be nursed back to health? Protect the pregnant woman. Before he could finish asking, a decisive voice came from beside him. No matter what happens, protect the pregnant woman. Su Nianhua looked at Ling Han in surprise. Are you crazy? That child is Yan Yan's life. Ling Han's eyes were cold, and he warned Su Nianhua word by word. Even her life is mine, let alone that unborn be **starred. After saying this, he took the surgery consent form from the nurse. When he put down the pen, his eyes trembled, and he could not help but think of the woman lying inside at the moment. Chapter 283. The moment he finished signing the papers, a nurse rushed out of the operating theater. She looked flustered. Chief Zhou, the pregnant woman, is emotional. All her indicators are abnormal. The chief surgeon frowned. He glanced at Ling Han and said in a deep voice, Mr. Ling, please change into a sterile gown and follow me into the operating theater. In front of the hospital bed, Yi Huanyan was covered with a large green surgical drape. Her face was pale, and her eyes were narrowed. Her forehead was covered in cold sweat, and there were many sticky strands of hair on her cheeks. She muttered, Ling Han. Ling Han entered the operating theater after the chief surgeon. He looked at the figure on the operating table and felt a sharp pain in his heart. It was as if a big hole had been torn open. He walked forward and shouted anxiously, Yi Huanyan. Yi Huanyan opened her eyes and saw Ling Han. She raised her hand with difficulty. Ling Han, save the child. I beg you. Until now, she was still thinking about the child with Su Nianhua. Ling Han tensed up and held her hand tightly. He said in a deep voice, Yi Huanyan, I promise you, we will have children in the future. Don't. She screamed at the top of her lungs, but there was no strength in her voice. She increased the strength in her hand, and her pale lips trembled. She even wanted to get up from the operating table. Her whole body trembled. She looked at Ling Han in despair and said word by word, Save my child, save our child. He's yours. He's really yours. I beg you. The equipment suddenly made a loud beeping sound. The doctor at the side exclaimed, The pregnant woman is bleeding profusely. Dr. Zhou, we need to operate quickly. The chief surgeon glanced at Ling Han and said in a low voice, The pregnant woman needs to be emotionally stable. Ling Han took a deep breath. Yi Huanyan, listen to me. Save the child, save the child. Yi Huanyan did not seem to hear anything. She only muttered those two words repeatedly. She stared at Ling Han and tightened her grip. It was as if she was using all the strength in her body. Even if this kind of force made her bleed profusely, she did not feel anything. I promise you, I'll save the child. Ling Han's voice was particularly clear among the many sounds of the equipment. Finally, it fell into Yi Huanyan's ears. He only felt that after he said this, the strength in his hand suddenly loosened. Yi Huanyan's eyes were filled with tears as she slowly closed them. The sound of the doctors working together in an orderly manner filled the operating theater, but for Ling Han, who was beside Yi Huanyan, it sounded inexplicably distant. The pregnant woman's vital signs. Forceps, surgical forceps. The fetus has been successfully extracted. No signs of life. There is no sign of life. The long process of the surgery was a kind of torture. Whether it was the person on the operating table or the people below the operating table, when Ling Han walked out of the operating room, he only felt that he had no strength in his body. It was as if the person lying on the operating table was not Yi Huanyan, but himself. Sun Yanhua stood up from the bench and asked anxiously, "How is Yan Yan?" Ling Han raised his head. There was an inexplicable sense of loss in his eyes. He looked at Sun Yanhua, but did not say a word. The doctor walked over from afar and glanced at Ling Han. He sighed and said, "It's a boy, but don't blame yourself too much. The child has intracranial hemorrhage, and there is no sign of life in the pregnant woman's stomach. It can't be saved. You made the right choice. You saved the pregnant woman from suffering." Sun Yanhua was stunned for a moment. He looked at Ling Han's dazed expression and suddenly felt a little pity. Yi Huanyan felt as if she had fallen into a big dream and could not wake up no matter how hard she tried. In the dream, it was chaotic. It was as if someone was talking to her, but when she opened her eyes, she could not see anything. There was the sound of cold instruments, but the surroundings were filled with the chirping of birds and the fragrance of flowers. There was also the sound of children playing. She stared blankly at the thousands of flowers and a blurry little figure in the distance. He ran towards her. "Mommy," the joy in her heart was indescribable. Was that her baby? 3 days later, in the VIP ward, the glaring sun shone on her face. Yi Huanyan slowly opened her eyes and saw the shining white wall above her head. She was stunned. She instinctively raised her arm and touched her lower abdomen. The bulge was obviously gone. She panicked for a moment at first, but then she remembered what Ling Han had promised her before she passed out on the operating table. The child was almost full term. It should be fine. There was no one in the ward. She tried to move her arm and sat up from the bed. She pushed the 4-drip cart beside her and carefully walked out of the ward. There were people coming and going in the corridor outside the door. She was wearing a hospital gown. Soon, a nurse came to ask if she needed help. "Hey, which bed are you in? Why aren't any family members with you?" Yi Huanyan was a little uneasy. "I'm fine. I just want to see my child." "Your child?" The nurse frowned and turned to look at the VIP ward number behind her. She suddenly realized. "You're the pregnant woman who was born prematurely 2 days ago." She nodded hesitantly. The nurse smiled and said, "Okay, then I'll take you to see the child. The child is in the intensive care unit. He's not even full term, but he was lucky to be saved. Our pediatrician took good care of him. He's very healthy now and can be discharged when he's full term." Hearing this, Yi Huanyan's eyes lit up. "Really? He's very healthy?" "Yes, he's very healthy. He's a girl as beautiful as you." As the nurse spoke, she helped Yi Huanyan to the elevator. "The intensive care unit is downstairs. Walk slowly." Not long after Yi Huanyan left, Ji Xiaoya held a bouquet of flowers on the first floor of the inpatient department. She walked towards the elevator in her high heels. After pressing the button for the elevator, she waited anxiously at the door. "Are you here to see Yan Yan?" A familiar voice sounded from behind her. She froze and slowly turned her head. Gu Sinian was wearing a linen suit and looking at her gently. When she met his eyes, she only felt her throat become very hoarse. She stiffly responded, then lowered her head and quickly avoided his gaze. She nodded and said, "Yes." Ever since she heard his conversation with Yi Huanyan at the Chinese restaurant that day, the two of them had not seen each other again. Actually, there was nothing to be embarrassed about, but Ji Xiaoya felt terrible and deliberately avoided him. The elevator slowly rose. Gu Sinian did not say anything and stood quietly beside her. The scent of mint wafted to the tip of her nose. She could not help but tighten her grip on the bouquet of flowers. In the end, she could not help but ask, "Is Yan Yan awake?" "When he left yesterday, she was still in a coma." "She wasn't when I left." "Oh." Ji Xiaoya nodded. When the elevator reached the floor, it slowly opened with a ding. The two of them walked in the direction of the ward. Before they reached the door, they saw Ling Han rushing out of the ward. When he saw the two of them, he asked, "Where's Yan Yan?" Chapter 284. Pediatrics Intensive Care Unit Entrance. The nurse supported Yi Huanyan as they stood in front of the isolation window. She pointed at the innermost incubator and said gently, "That's the child. She's very beautiful." Yi Huanyan looked through the isolation window at the small figure in the incubator. A trace of panic flashed across her eyes. "Why isn't she moving?" "She's asleep," the nurse reminded her. She let out a long sigh of relief. Her eyes were full of surprise. "She's very small." A series of hurried footsteps sounded. At the end of the corridor, a familiar voice sounded. Yen Yen, Yi Huanyan was slightly stunned. She looked in the direction of the voice and saw Ling Han. She was full of joy. She thought that he was willing to protect this child and let her be born safely. Did he already believe that this child was his? Ling Han strode over. From the corner of his eye, he glanced at the rows of incubators in the isolation window. His eyes darkened. "Why are you here?" Yi Huanyan smiled and said gently, "I'm here to see our child." Ling Han's eyes trembled. He looked at Yi Huanyan with a stunned expression. Yi Huanyan didn't seem to notice his surprised expression. She turned and pointed at the innermost incubator. "It's a beautiful girl. I want to see her." The nurse smiled. "She can wear a sterile gown and a mask." Ling Han frowned. "Yen Yen, you're mistaken. That's not your child." Yi Huanyan was slightly stunned. She looked at Ling Han in confusion. The incubator wasn't far away. She could clearly see the ward number on it. "You're in Ward 8. That's the child in Ward 6. The nurse's face suddenly turned pale. "Ward 8. Ward 8? Yi Huanyan stared blankly at the incubator. There was indeed a number 6 sign on it. She could vaguely see her mother's name on it. It really wasn't her. "Then where's my child? Where is it?" She looked through the isolation window and looked at the nurse who had brought her in. Her eyes were full of questions. The nurse was so scared that her face turned pale. She trembled and said, "I'm sorry, I made a mistake. I made a mistake." Ling Han glanced at her unhappily. He put his hands on Yi Huanyan's shoulders and said, "Come back with me first. I'll tell you when we get back." Yi Huanyan was stunned. "Go back. I haven't seen my child yet. What happened to her? Where is my child?" The nurse lowered her head, not daring to say a word. Seeing that Yi Huanyan refused to leave, Ling Han had no choice but to take a deep breath. He held her shoulders, leaned over slightly, and approached her face. He said earnestly, "Yen Yen, you will have another child in the future. I promise you, we will start over." "What do you mean in the future? In the future?" Yi Huanyan stared at Ling Han in a daze. In her clear eyes, the confusion froze and gradually turned into shock, astonishment, and disbelief. At that moment, she felt like her brain was about to explode. She felt her legs go soft and her whole body lose strength. Ling Han quickly held her shoulders, but saw that her whole body was trembling. She looked at him in disbelief and asked repeatedly, "You didn't save him? You didn't save him?" "Yen Yen, slap." A loud slap resounded throughout the corridor, interrupting all of Ling Han's explanations. Ling Han didn't even try to dodge, and a red scar appeared on his cold face from being scratched by a nail. Yi Huanyan's slender wrist was raised in the air. Her other hand grabbed Ling Han's collar fiercely. She used almost all of her strength and screamed at the top of her lungs, "You didn't save him? Why? You don't believe me. You never believed me." Yi Huanyan, Ling Han frowned, held her shoulders, and said in a more serious tone, "Come back with me when you're done." Yi Huanyan struggled to break free from his arms and pushed the 4 drip next to her. Clang, clang, followed one after another. It was a mess. She didn't seem to feel the pain of the blood on the back of her hand. With disheveled hair, she leaned against the wall and screamed at Ling Han, "You killed your own child with your own hands. You're crazy, you murderer," looking at the blood dripping from the back of her hand. A cold look appeared in Ling Han's eyes. He growled, "That bastard shouldn't be alive in the first place. Yi Huanyan, wake up. Without him, we can start afresh. This is the greatest tolerance I can give you." "Start over?" When she heard these words, Yi Huanyan's red eyes were filled with mockery. She leaned against the wall in a panic and staggered. She looked at Ling Han and laughed maniacally. You said we can start over? Yi Huanyan. Endure. She repeated what Ling Han said word by word, as if she had heard the funniest joke in the world. She cried and laughed, and her whole body trembled. Do you know what that child means to me? Do you know what it means to me if that child is gone? Do you know? You didn't just kill my child with your own hands. You also killed my last, pitiful, and humble hope for you. You killed it with your own hands, cough, cough. She complained and coughed. Snot and tears flowed, but she couldn't stop laughing. You're telling me to start over? Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. When Gu Xinian and Ji Xiaoya rushed over, this was the sad scene. Yi Huanyan leaned against the wall, the back of her hand dripping with blood. Her whole body was on the verge of collapse, but her eyes were full of hatred. She looked at the man in front of her and said in a sad and determined voice, Ling Han, it's over between us. It's completely over. I don't want to have anything to do with you in this life. It's best if we don't have anything to do with each other in our next life. Ling Han's body was shrouded in a layer of dangerous coldness. He suddenly grabbed her slender wrist and said through gritted teeth, What did you say? Yi Huanyan? Damn it. Gu Xinian only heard Ji Xiaoya say these two words. Then, before he could react, a bouquet of flowers was forced into his arms. He looked up and saw her in her 12-centimeter high heels, aggressively grabbing Ling Han's arm. His angry roar resounded throughout the corridor. Ling Han, you scumbag, are you F***ing done yet? You'll only be satisfied after you kill her, right? You F***ing, let go of her. Ling Han's face was dark, and his gaze did not move from Yi Huanyan's face at all. Get lost. This is between me and her. You F***ing, let go of her. Gu Xinian pulled Ji Xiaoya, who was about to scold him, behind him. Then he stared coldly at Ling Han and said with a calm expression, She's been provoked. There's no point in you talking to her now. Hearing this, Ling Han hesitated for a few seconds, and the anger in his eyes gradually disappeared. He loosened his grip, and Yi Huanyan's body fell into Gu Xinian's arms. She trembled and refused to look at him again. He took a deep breath and suppressed his monstrous anger. He said in a low voice, I'll talk to you again when you've calmed down. Yi Huanyan curled up in Gu Xinian's arms, and her shoulders kept trembling. When she heard this, she was silent for a few seconds. Her hands clenched the corner of Gu Xinian's suit, as if she was clutching at a life-saving straw, and refused to let go. She slowly turned her head, and her dim eyes were filled with despair. I want to divorce you. Chapter 285. When he heard the word divorce, Ling Han only felt a surge of anger rush up to his head from his chest. He wished he could strangle her right now and ask her why she was so upset just because of this bastard that she actually wanted to divorce him. Even if it was a divorce, why was she the one who suggested it? However, after saying that, she fainted. Gu Xinian carried her up and walked to the end of the corridor, not giving him any chance to question her. The next day, Gu Xinian handed a divorce agreement to Ling Han. He stood at the door of the ward, but Gu Xinian stopped him, saying that it was Yi Huanyan's idea. I won't sign it. Ling Han's face was cold. I'll take her home when she's discharged next week. She won't go home with you whether you sign it or not. Gu Xinian sneered. Unless you want her to die. Ling Han's heart skipped a beat, and he instinctively looked into the ward. In the ward, Yi Huanyan was wearing a pink striped hospital gown, sitting by the bed with her back to the door. She hugged a pillow and hummed a little tune. The sun shone on her hair, which was very gentle, but there was no trace of vitality. Ling Han's eyes hurt when he saw that look. The doctor said that she's slightly depressed. If she's agitated again, I'm afraid that she'll develop into schizophrenia. So I hope you won't disturb her again during this time. Gu Xinian's voice was cold, and there was no room for refusal. Agitated? Ling Han's face darkened. You should know that the child's death has nothing to do with me. Is there really nothing to do with it? Gu Xinian sneered. Wasn't the woman who hit someone with a car, your ex-girlfriend? Or the person who kicked Yen Yen out of the house wasn't you? Ling Han clenched his fists and said with a cold expression, "What is your relationship with Yi Huanyan?" Their eyes met, and the atmosphere in the corridor was cold. Only Gu Xinyan's deep voice was tinged with a bit of gentleness, but it turned into a sharp blade that ruthlessly stabbed into Ling Han's heart. "She is the most important woman in my heart, and I won't allow anyone to hurt her." Gu Xinyan threw the divorce agreement onto the bench in the corridor. He glanced at Ling Han contemptuously, turned around, entered the ward, and closed the door. Ling Han's gaze passed through the window and landed on the figure in the room. She turned around and hugged the pillow, smiling weakly in Gu Xinyan's direction. She seemed to have caught a glimpse of him from the corner of her eyes and quickly retracted her gaze. She was actually very stingy to even look at him. "Have they left?" Ji Xiaoya walked to the bed with a cup of hot water and handed it to Yi Huanyan as she asked Gu Xinian. "Yes." Gu Xinian nodded. "Come, Yen Yen, take your medicine." Ji Xiaoya sat beside her and gently persuaded her. Yi Huanyan was stunned. She looked at the medicine and then at the baby in her arms. "How can you do something like hiring a hitman to kill someone, Xiao Mu?" Sheng Enren laid on the bed and made up his mind. He said coldly, "It's already done. Isn't she still alive? I just want that child to die. You know that I can't sleep well as long as that child is alive." "You're sleeping soundly now. That's Yi Huanyan's child. If someone kills your child, what will you think? Won't you break down?" Sheng Enren's face stiffened. She knew that she was in the wrong, but she was unwilling to show it in front of Xiao Mu. She straightened her neck and said, "Don't be hypocritical. You helped in this matter too. If you didn't fake the DNA test and kick Yi Huanyan out of the house, how could I have the chance to do it? Speaking of which, we're in the same boat right now, so you better not say anything. Otherwise, we won't be able to bear the consequences." Xiao Mu's face paled, and he stared fixedly at Sheng Enren, as if he did not dare to believe that she would say such a thing. It was as if something was stuck in his throat, and he could not say a single word. Seeing this, Sheng Enren cautiously crawled to the bedside and grasped his hand with apprehension in his eyes. "Xiao Mu, forget about this matter. Just pretend that nothing happened and nothing was done. That was all done by Ingugua. It has nothing to do with us." Chapter 286. Half a month later, Yi Huanyan was discharged from the hospital. After recuperation and psychiatric treatment, her condition had improved. At the very least, she had accepted the fact that her child was gone. On the day she was discharged from the hospital, Ling Han's car was parked at the entrance of the hospital. Yi Huanyan was holding a bouquet of flowers in her hands, surrounded by Sun Yanhua, Gu Xinian, Gu Lu, and Ji Xiaoya. When she saw Ling Han, her eyes flickered. A sharp pain came, causing her forced smile to completely freeze on her face. "What are you doing here?" It was Ji Xiaoya who spoke. She rolled up her sleeves and stood in front of Yi Huanyan. "I'm telling you, this is the entrance of the hospital. There are security guards. If you dare to do anything to me, go back with me." Ling Han's gaze went straight past Ji Xiaoya, ignoring her as if she was invisible, and landed on Yi Huanyan's face. Yi Huanyan only glanced at him indifferently, then looked away. She held Gu Xinyan's arm and said, "Let's go. I'm tired. I want to go back and rest." "Where are you going?" Ling Han stepped forward and pushed Ji Xiaoya to the side. Ji Xiaoya cried out in surprise. She staggered and fell into a broad embrace. When he looked up, he saw the anger in Gu Xinyan's eyes. He said coldly, "Ling Han, you can't take Yen Yen away today, not because of us, but because of yourself." Ling Han only looked at Yi Huanyan and said slowly, "Whether she lives or dies, she belongs to me. She has to go with me today." Yi Huanyan's eyes were full of pain. She staggered, and Sun Yanhua quickly supported her. Now that things had come to this, he was still unwilling to let her go? Just because I'm Jiang Milan's daughter, just because of this ridiculous reason. You wanted me to return you my broken bones. I've already paid you back. Ling Han, what else do you want? Ling Han frowned and said coldly, It's not up to you to decide whether or not you've paid off the debt. It's also not up to you to decide whether or not you want a divorce. Hearing this, Yi Huanyan felt her blood turn cold. She clenched her fists and leaned against Sun Yanhua's chest, her eyes trembling. Gu Xinyan's expression darkened. Gu Lu, what are you still standing there for? As soon as his voice fell, Gu Lu hurriedly whistled. More than a dozen figures quickly rushed out from the hospital. Each of them had the back of a tiger and the waist of a bear. They surrounded the group of people and stared at Ling Han covetously. Xiaoyu, get in the car with Yan first. Gu Xinian released the person in his arms and said this. His eyes were full of murderous intent. Ji Xiaoya hurriedly walked to Sun Yanhua and opened the car door. She looked at Yi Huanyan with a questioning gaze. Yi Huanyan glanced at Ling Han, took a deep breath, and got into the car. Ling Han took a step forward and was stopped by a burly man. The man who looked like an assistant stood at the side. President Ling came here alone today. To prevent rumors from spreading that we're bullying you with numbers, it's better to be peaceful. President Ling, please leave on your own accord. We won't do anything. Ling Han's eyes were cold. Let Yi Huanyan get out of the car. Gu Lu was taken aback when he saw that Ling Han was so insensible. He looked at Gu Xinian behind him with a questioning gaze. Young master, Gu Xinian sneered. Since President Ling is so polite, then we won't be polite. Gu Lu was secretly shocked. He turned to look at those burly men and took a deep breath. Did you hear that? Young master means that we won't be polite. After receiving the order, the burly man twisted his neck and raised his hand to punch Ling Han's face. However, he easily caught it. The two people quickly wrestled, and the sound of punches and kicks hitting each other was very cruel. The passers-by all hid far away. Some security guards wanted to check the situation, but they were all glared at by the burly men. Later on, if Qiao Mu hadn't come up to pull them away, Ling Han might have been seriously injured and sent to the emergency room. When Qiao Mu pulled him away, Ling Han's face was already dripping with blood. Half of his face was bleeding, but he still wanted to walk toward the car that Yi Huanyan was in. He didn't feel any pain, but he felt like something was being sucked away from his heart. For some reason, he felt that after Yi Huanyan got into that car and left, she really wouldn't come back. The car window slowly rolled down, and Ji Xiaoya's voice came out. Xinian, Yan says she's sleepy. Let's go. Upon hearing this, Gu Xinian looked meaningfully at Ling Han. He gave Gu Lu some instructions before turning around and getting into the car. The two cars left in a cloud of dust. Ling Han wanted to chase after them, but he was stopped by more than a dozen burly men. It wasn't until the backs of the two cars disappeared from sight that the burly men dispersed. Qiao Mu supported Ling Han. Director Ling, don't be impulsive. There are still a lot of things waiting for you to take care of at the company. Secretary Yi is just feeling down. She should be fine in 2 days. Seeing that Ling Han didn't say anything, he cautiously said, Director Ling, go to the hospital's emergency department first and get your wound bandaged. Ling Han frowned and flung his hand away. No need. At the Lanjiang City Detention Center, the lawyer had a solemn expression. Miss Yin, thankfully, you were the one who caused the accident. The pregnant woman is fine, but you can't escape responsibility for causing the child's death. The consequences are very serious. Isn't it just going to jail? Yin Guogwa sneered. That woman caused me to be like this. I only hate that I couldn't kill her. The lawyer frowned and said seriously, Miss Yin, according to my investigation, the things you said before have nothing to do with Yi Huanyan. What did you say? These are the results of my investigation from the past 2 days. Originally, if what you said was true, you could ask for a reduced sentence based on the logic of self-defense. However, according to the things you told me, Yi Huanyan had an alibi and couldn't do anything. Even that bar owner Boss Zhu didn't know Yi Huanyan at all. How is that possible? Yin Guogua trembled as she took the information, her face full of disbelief. How is that possible? If it wasn't her, then who could it be? Ling Han? The lawyer's frown deepened, and he shook his head. According to the investigation, other than blacklisting you, Ling Han didn't interfere with anything else. As for that Boss Zhu, I found out that he had contact with a person named Su Min a while ago, and even received a large sum of money from her. After that, Boss Zhu suddenly brought you to the bar's shareholders. Su Min. Yin Guogua's eyes widened as she crazily clutched the page with Su Min's name written on it. Her eyes were full of mania. How is that possible? Su Min, it's her. Shang Anren, the lawyer, sighed and said helplessly, although you were drunk driving at the time of the accident, which is a negligent crime, it depends on whether the plaintiff is willing to settle out of court. Otherwise, you will definitely go to jail. However, I haven't been able to get in touch with the plaintiff. I guess I'll have to rely on the court for the first trial. How was that possible? Yin Guogua clenched her fists. How could that woman, Yi Huanyan, be willing to settle out of court with her? It was already very kind of her not to kill her. She gritted her teeth and stared at the information, her eyes full of madness. After a while, she said fiercely, I don't want to go to jail. I want to go out. Help me find someone. I want to see Boss Zhu. Chapter 287. After being discharged from the hospital, Yi Huanyan stayed in Ji Xiaoya's apartment. Originally, Gu Xinian wanted to take her away directly, but she didn't want to. Ji Xiaoya was worried about her health, so she got off work early every day to buy groceries and go back to have dinner with her. She and Gu Xinian were much more natural now. No one deliberately avoided each other. Everyone was wholeheartedly devoted to Yi Huanyan. After work, Ji Xiaoya came out of the office building with a huge shopping bag and was ready to go to the supermarket. As soon as she came out of the office building, she saw a familiar figure who was particularly eye-catching in the crowd. Gu Xinian stood in front of the car door with his hands in his trouser pockets. He was looking at her with a half-smile. She opened her mouth in surprise. You, why are you here? Yen said that you were going to the supermarket to buy things today. I was afraid that you couldn't carry it, so I went with you. It was a very valid reason. Ji Xiaoya's heart just had a ripple, but she forced herself to suppress it. In the apartment, Yi Huanyan held the baby scarf and hat in her hands as she stood in front of the window in a daze. Her pale face looked very haggard. Accepting the truth was a very painful thing. She didn't want to go out. She didn't want to interact with strangers. It was difficult for her to even say 2 sentences in a day. There was a noise outside the window. She was slightly stunned and was attracted by the cheerful children's music. She looked in the direction of the noise. A huge yellow Winnie the Pooh was dancing in the square of the residential area. Under the setting sun, the warm yellow light shone on the Pooh's body. It looked clumsy, but when it danced, every step it took was on point. It was very moving. There were many people in the neighborhood who brought their children out for a walk. 7 or 8 children were playing around Winnie the Pooh. Looking at this scene, Yi Huanyan's eyes gradually revealed a trace of a smile. The little bear suddenly knelt down on one knee and retracted its hand behind its back. When it reappeared, it suddenly transformed into a rose and waved it in the direction of the 3rd-floor balcony. Before Yi Huanyan could see it clearly, the rose suddenly flew into the sky. Pong! Numerous pink dolls suddenly fell from the sky. Each of them was only half the size of a palm. They were all pink piglets. 2 or 3 of them fell on the windowsill. Yi Huanyan hesitated for a moment, then opened the window. She reached out and held one of them in her hand. She stared blankly at the figure downstairs. That figure danced with all her might and did all kinds of humorous moves, making the people in the neighborhood laugh. The laughter downstairs also affected her. In the end, the little bear held a rope with a colorful balloon tied to it. It slowly walked to Yi Huanyan's windowsill. The colorful balloons slowly moved to the windowsill. The balloon at the top had a huge, smiley face tied to it, and it was baring its teeth at her. Through the balloons, she saw the clumsy little bear sitting on the ground. It took off its gloves and stuffed its phone into its helmet. It looked very strange. The phone beside her rang. Yi Huanyan was stunned. She hesitated and pressed the answer button. A familiar voice came from the speaker. Yen Yen, do you still remember? 11 years ago, when we were in our first year of high school on Christmas Eve, I couldn't accompany you to the central square to release the balloons because I had an underground band activity. When we met later, you were very angry. You told me that it was because we didn't release the balloons together. So, all the anger stayed in your heart. Yi Huanyan was stunned. Many of the things that happened 11 years ago were caused by Yi Huanyan's romantic feelings. Did he still remember? At that time, I thought that you were being childish and unreasonable. But all these years, when you weren't by my side, I had a lot of anger and unhappiness. Especially before I debuted. There was one time when I got into a fight with someone in a bar. 5 years ago, after I came out of the bar, I picked up 2 balloons from a telephone pole by the roadside. The moment I released the balloons, I really felt that what you said was right. Yi Huanyan choked a little and said softly, but at that time, I was really being unreasonable. I didn't know if releasing the balloons would work. Lu Shen, I was lying to you. I know. Su Nianhua's voice trembled. Just treat it as if it's real. Sometimes we have to lie to ourselves. You understood logic 11 years ago. Why don't you understand now? You can't let go of yourself. No matter what you're looking forward to or regret, in the end, you have to let go of yourself and let go of all the sadness in your heart. Just treat it as if it's real. Yin Yan, give it a try. Our life can start afresh. The baby will know that you love him in heaven. You love him more than anyone else. Only Su Nianhua knew that what made Yi Huanyan's heart ache the most was the departure of that child. That child was Yi Huanyan's greatest spiritual support during this period of time. Now that the child was gone, her world collapsed. She refused to leave with Gu Xinian and insisted on staying at Ji Xiaoya's place because she couldn't forget. This place hid her greatest longing for her child. Yi Huanyan stared blankly at those colorful balloons for a while. Finally, she found a pair of scissors in the drawer at the side. Her hands trembled as she reached out the window and grabbed the string tied to the balloons. She glanced at Little Bear downstairs and finally closed her eyes to cut it. The moment she cut it, she opened her eyes. Her eyes were red. Looking at the colorful balloons flying into the distant sky one after another, she finally couldn't help but cry out loud. At this moment, she finally recognized the reality and accepted it. The baby had left and would never come back. But there was still someone by her side who loved her and cared about her. This world was still moving. Nothing had changed except for her own heart. The world didn't collapse, and her heart could be rebuilt. Under the window, Winnie the Pooh took off his hood, revealing his sweaty face. He was unusually handsome. He panted and tried to suppress his heaving chest. He whispered into the phone, "You lost the moon, but you still have the stars. Yen Yen, we're all by your side." Gu Xinian and Ji Xiaoya had just gotten out of the car. They were both carrying bags of various sizes. When they saw this scene, they were both shocked. They looked toward the window on the 3rd floor in a panic, afraid that something would happen to Yi Huanyan. Yi Huanyan stood on the windowsill, crying and laughing at the same time. When she saw the 2 people, she wiped her tears and sobbed. "Xiaoyu, why are you only back now? I'm hungry." Ji Xiaoya was stunned. Then she revealed a big, bright smile. She screamed and dropped the shopping bags in her hand. She ran towards Su Nianhua. "Brother Hua, you're so awesome. No wonder you're my idol." She didn't notice that behind her, Gu Xinian's eyes were inexplicably filled with jealousy. He stared at Su Nianhua with hostility. "It's just a little romantic cliché. Is that awesome?" Chapter 288. Su Nianhua appeared in front of the small apartment building in various disguises, causing the people who recognized him to scream in shock. Ever since the day Yi Huanyan took the initiative to put down the baby scarf that she carried in her arms 24/7, Ji Xiaoya had deliberately put away all the children's things in the house, so as not to remind them of the sad scene. On the surface, Yi Huanyan's emotions seemed to be under control. Everyone felt very gratified. On this day, Ji Xiaoya came back from the supermarket as usual. Gu Xinian helped her carry her things and listened to her nagging. Say, Su Nianhua comes here every few days. After my address is exposed online, will Yan Yan be in trouble? Do you want Yan Yan to stay at your place? Or I can ask our chief editor to inform the media. Gu Xinian looked indifferent. My address won't be exposed. How do you know? Ji Xiaoya was slightly stunned. Have you informed the media? Gu Xinian glanced at the sapphire blue car around the corner from the corner of his eye and said coldly, I originally planned to do so, but someone has a conscience in this regard. He thought more than I did and acted faster than I did. Ji Xiaoya was slightly stunned. She followed his gaze and her expression froze. He still dares to come. As she said this, she was about to rush forward. Gu Xinian grabbed her wrist. Don't go. If he wants to come and stand downstairs, then let him stand. I'm afraid that Yan Yan will break down when she sees him. Do you think Yan Yan doesn't know that he's here? As he said this, Gu Xinian looked up at the window on the 3rd floor. Ever since he found out that Ling Han was downstairs, the window had been closed. Yi Huanyan, who was supposed to go to the window to bask in the sun every day, also changed to take an afternoon nap at this time every day. The meaning was self-evident. Ling Han was also a persistent person. He came every day for a week. The time he came was not fixed, but he always waited until the sky turned dark. A cat crying for a mouse, Ji Xiaoya said, and walked toward the building angrily with the shopping bags. Behind her, Gu Xinian revealed a doting smile in his eyes. Looking down from the window on the 3rd floor, he could see a sapphire blue car parked under a huge camphor tree. Beside it stood a man in a suit. Such a scene had become a unique scene in the neighborhood these days. The man stood there for half a day like a statue, not moving at all. He waited until night fell. The lights on the 3rd floor went out, and the sound of an engine starting could be heard in the neighborhood. A sapphire blue car left the light of the street lamps and drove into the night. During dinner, Ji Xiaoya's gaze would intentionally or unintentionally pass Yi Huanyan's shoulder and look at the curtains behind her. Yan Yan, have you been basking in the sun recently? She felt that Gu Xinian was wrong. If Yi Huanyan knew that Ling Han was downstairs, why didn't she say anything and act as if nothing had happened? Yi Huanyan picked up some food and said indifferently, I'm not basking in the sun anymore. The sun has been too strong recently, and it's too hot outside. August in Lanjiang City was already the hottest month of the year. Just walking around outside would make one's body soaked. That's true. It's too hot outside, so don't go to the window if you have nothing to do. Rest more at home. You can only start your life afresh after you have a good rest. She couldn't seem to stop talking as she spoke. Gu Xinian gently interrupted Ji Xiaoya. Dad and Mom called this morning to ask how you've been and when you can go back. Have you thought about it? Ji Xiaoya's expression froze when she heard this. She stared blankly at the person in front of her. He was leaving. Yi Huanyan's expression was indifferent. She picked up some food and placed it in Gu Xinian's bowl. In 2 days. I want to see third sister. She saved me, but I haven't thanked her in person yet. Ji Xiaoya and Gu Xinian both knew that the third sister Yi Huanyan was referring to was Gu Fengfeng. She was the woman who had sent Yi Huanyan to the hospital immediately after the accident that day. If it hadn't been for her, not only would the child have died, but even Yi Huanyan would have died. Gu Fengfeng had been waiting at the entrance of the operating theater that day. She had only left when she heard that the operation was a success. After that, she had visited Yi Huanyan twice in the hospital, but she had left in a hurry. Yi Huanyan was also in a bad mood. so the two of them hadn't spoken much. Gu Sinian nodded. Okay, I'll arrange it for you tomorrow. After dinner, Gu Sinian left, leaving Ji Xiaoya and Yi Huanyan alone in the apartment. Yi Huanyan was sitting on the sofa reading a book. She was so quiet that she looked like a painting. Ji Xiaoya was washing the dishes in the kitchen. She looked like she had lost her soul. Clang! The bowls and plates fell to the ground with a loud thud. Yi Huanyan's face turned pale. She was shocked and turned to look in the direction of the kitchen in a daze. Ji Xiaoya looked at her sheepishly and apologized repeatedly. Yan, I'm sorry for scaring you. Let me clean up. She tried her best to hide her emotions, but she couldn't hide from Yi Huanyan's sharp eyes and sensitive nerves. Ji Xiaoya squatted down to pick up the pieces of porcelain. A pair of white, soft, furry slippers appeared before her eyes. She was slightly stunned. Yi Huanyan had already squatted down and held her hand. Don't move. Just use a broom to sweep it clean. Ji Xiaoya said sullenly. Yan, why can't I do anything right? Yi Huanyan was slightly stunned. Who said that? No one. I just feel that I can't even wash the dishes properly. It's the same for cooking. I felt embarrassed when I saw the tomato scrambled eggs I made today. I said that I was taking care of you, but in fact, you're the one taking care of me every day. As she spoke, Ji Xiaoya hugged her knees and cried loudly. I can't do anything right. Yi Huanyan was at a loss. She had never seen Ji Xiaoya so pessimistic before. She hurriedly helped her to the sofa and handed her a tissue to wipe her tears. Seeing that she was sobbing uncontrollably, she tried to ask her what had happened. For the past 2 days, she had come back from work every day to help her cook and wash the dishes. She wore trendy clothes that could be photographed at the airport and rushed to do the housework. Although she couldn't do it well, she still made some progress. Ji Xiaoya had never been a girl who was willing to bury herself in the kitchen. When she was in university, she had said that she would never be a man's accessory, so she had always been against the kitchen. Yi Huanyan was not completely clueless as to why she had learned how to cook. Did my brother say anything to you? She asked tentatively. No. Ji Xiaoya shook her head. Nothing at all. Yi Huanyan thought carefully about what had happened today and said hesitantly, Was it because my brother asked me when I would be coming home? Didn't he talk to you about this before? When she heard this, Ji Xiaoya's tears, which she had just stopped, fell again. Her whole body trembled. He didn't say anything to me. He didn't say when you were leaving, where you were going, or how long you would be back. He didn't say anything. That you're tuning in to the Echo Reads YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.